Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G.
And I'm Chris Beers.
President Biden announcing price cuts on popular drugs. It's a result of Medicare's first ever direct negotiations with drug makers.
And former President Trump is scheduled to have a press conference at his Bedminster golf resort in New Jersey later this afternoon around 4:30 p.m. Eastern. We'll have that for you.
Democratic vice presidential nominee Tim Walz will debate Republican rival JD Vance. They've agreed on one of the dates proposed by CBS News.
An update on former President Trump's New York criminal case. A letter from Trump's lawyer has been made public today.
Authorities arrest at least one person in connection with Matthew Perry's death. He died from an accidental ketamine overdose last year. What do we know?
Ukraine now has a military commandant's office in the occupied parts of Russia. How the Kremlin is reacting to avoid further losses along its border.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
In a few hours, former President Trump will hold a press conference at his golf club in New Jersey. It's expected he'll lay out his economic agenda before Vice President Kamala Harris is expected to announce hers on Friday. Joining us now live is NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao, who's in Bedminster, New Jersey. Good afternoon, Iris. What are you expecting to hear today?
Good afternoon to both of you. So today at around 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time, former President Trump will be speaking and taking questions from all of us right here at his golf club in Bedminster, New Jersey. And meanwhile, this will be his second press conference in just about a week. The last one he gave was at Mar-a-Lago last week, where he took questions from us for over an hour. And actually, just moments ago, I bumped into him as I was walking to the car, and he seems to be in a good mood. I asked him how he's feeling before the presser. He told me he's feeling well and asked me back how I was feeling and waved at me, so he certainly does seem to be in a good mood. And today we expect questions about, for example, his economic platform. He just gave a speech yesterday in the battleground state of North Carolina about his economic policy and also about his schedule next week during the Democratic National Convention, as well as about his take on the current state of the race. Meanwhile, let's watch a clip from his speech last night in North Carolina. Watch.
By contrast, I'm announcing today that under my leadership, the United States will commit to the ambitious goal of slashing energy and electricity prices by half, at least half. We intend to slash prices by half within 12 months, at a maximum 18 months. And if it doesn't work out, you'll say, oh, well, I voted for him.
But Vice President Kamala Harris's campaign is hitting back, saying out in a statement that Trump is ignoring the fact that, quote, inflation is down, unemployment is at historic lows. And Harris's campaign also sent out a statement just moments ago, specifically targeting Trump's press conference today, and saying that Trump is going to repeat, quote, the same old thing. Meanwhile, Harris is expected to lay out her economic vision, her economic platform for his campaign tomorrow in Raleigh, North Carolina, the battleground state that both of them are trying to grab this election. I mean, while we do expect Trump to specifically talk about Harris's economic platform as well and lay out his agenda for the country's economic policy. Back to you.
Iris Tao at Bedminster, New Jersey. Thank you so much.
President Biden today touting his new initiative to lower prescription drug prices. 10 drugs covered under Medicare will see price cuts. And Chris, the government estimates that this will save Americans $1.5 billion.
That's right, Fiona. It's the first time Medicare has negotiated directly with drug companies. Before the Inflation Reduction Act was passed in 2022, the federal government was not allowed in on the negotiations. Here's the president and vice president today.
Every single prescription drug she has, including, God forbid, if she needs a really expensive drug like a cancer drug, maximum she ever has to pay is $2,000, period. That's why from the time I was in the Senate, I worked tirelessly to give Medicare the power to negotiate lower drug prices, just like the Department of Veterans Affairs. In fact, I was reminded by staff today One of the first major bills I worked on was in 1973. I co-sponsored legislation led by Senator Frank Church that let Medicare negotiate the cost of drugs. 1973, this fight's been going on. You know, the VA pays, as they should, 50% less than Medicare because VA can negotiate the prices. But for years, Big Pharma blocked Medicare from negotiating lower drug prices. As a consequence, they're able to maintain the exorbitant price increases and the profits are uncalled for. Look, but this time we finally beat Big Pharma. And I might add, with no help from Republicans, not a single Republican voted for this bill, period, not one in the entire Congress. Now, the reason I say it is not to make a political point about them, if they've gotten their lesson, but guess what? They want to, the guy we're running against, what's his name? Donald Dump or Donald, whatever. They want to get rid of this, what we passed. They're fighting to get rid of what we've just passed. No, I'm serious. No help from Republicans passed the Inflation Reduction Act thanks to the tie-breaking vote of Kamala made it possible. Folks, it really matters. For example, take the insulin needed to treat diabetes. The guy who invented that insulin 100 years ago didn't put a patent on it because he wanted it to be available for everybody. He didn't even patent it. Well, guess you know how much it cost those companies to make that insulin? $10, T-E-N. That's the God's truth. $10, number one. Number two, to package it and ship it, you might get it up to $13. But they were charging up to $400 a month for it. But now they can't charge more than $35 a month. It's a big deal. Oh, look, $35 a month. These guys still make enormous profits. That's 3 times what it cost them to make it. The initial legislation capped the cost for everyone who needed that insulin. How many of you know anybody needs insulin for diabetes? Raise your hand. Okay, well, guess what? For the next 3 months we got here, I'm not leaving here, and Kamala, when she's president, going to make sure if we don't get it done, everybody should qualify for that $35 a month. Every American. I mean it. Folks, that's not all. The same law we wrote, means starting in January of this year, every senior in the United States of America, no matter what their cost of drugs, and like I said, some of these cancer drugs are $12,000 a year. Every single penny they spend, they never have to spend more than $2,000 a year for all drugs. All drugs. And we're going to fight to make sure everyone qualifies for that as well. Look, all together, our reforms not only save lives, but here's the point people don't talk enough about. It saves the taxpayers billions of dollars. What we've done so far will save the taxpayers over the next 10 years $160 billion. Taxpayers, lowering the debt. I mean it. Because they don't have to pay the exorbitant price that Medicare had to pay before. They're going to pay $35 instead of $400. Folks, and those savings are only going to increase for American taxpayers because it matters. Look, but that's not all the Inflation Reduction Act did. Last summer, I announced under that law, Medicare is going to select, and it's already passed law, 10 drugs a year, going up to 20 till we get every single drug every year. Drugs treat from everything from heart failure, blood clots, kidney disease, arthritis, blood cancers, and more. And today, I'm proud to announce that Medicare has reached agreement with all manufacturers on all 10 drugs selected in the first round of negotiations. The new lower prices for all 10 drugs will go into effect in January of 2026, not this January, next January. Negotiations cut the price of these 10 drugs for Judy and others who are on Medicare, nearly 40 to 80%, depending which drug it is. Let me give you one example. Non-insulin diabetes drugs cost $530 a month. Some of you may know that. Guess what? It's now only going to cost $115. By the way, these new prices on 10 drugs will cumulatively mean $1.5 billion less out of pocket for patients to the drug companies. Lower copays for many of the 9 million seniors who take these drugs. But that's not all. We're also saving the American taxpayer because of the new changes, $6 billion a year, because Medicare won't have to pay out that much. Imagine that, $6 billion a year. But we could do that for child care and health care and so much more. We're just getting started. Under the law I signed, Medicare can negotiate lower prices for another 15 drugs next year, 15 the following, and 20 after that till every drug is covered. That's the law, now. This is another really big deal. It means that Americans can save more money on from life-saving medications they need and deserve. And bring peace of mind. It's hard to explain. Kamala and I are going to keep fighting to lower the prescription drug costs for everyone, not just seniors. It's a fight that we have to continue. Folks, but guess what? Surprise, surprise. Big Pharma doesn't want this to happen at all. The pharmaceutical industry last year spent $400 million lobbying the Congress to stop this. $400 million. Worked pretty well. They didn't get one Republican voted against them. They all voted for him. Republican allies stuck with them. And the ability of the federal government to negotiate lower drug prices was tried to be stopped. But Kamala and all of us in this room are going to keep standing up for Big Pharma. I fought too damn hard to yield now. We're not backing down. And get this, you may have heard about the MAGA Republican Project 2025 plan. They want to repeal Medicare's power to negotiate drug prices. Let Big Pharma back to charge them whatever they want. Let me tell you what our Project 2025 is. Beat the hell out of them. I mean it. In January 25, total prescription drug costs will be capped at $2,000, no matter how expensive they are. And some are expensive as $12 a year, $12,000 a month, I should say. Kamala Harris and Democrats in Congress will make sure that $2,000 cap covers everyone, not just seniors as well. Insulin costs just $35 for everyone, not just seniors. Our Project 25 will lower prescription drug costs for you, your families, instead of handing Big Pharma a big blank check. And look, and in the process, this is what we don't talk enough about, I don't think. In the process, we're going to save the taxpayer. The budget's going to be reduced by hundreds of billions of dollars. Hear me? Hundreds of billions of dollars. Just the first year, the first thing we passed, is $160 billion less that the government's going to have to pay out to farmers. But guess what? It can pay out for education, it can pay out for health care, it can pay out for so much more, or it can just simply reduce the deficit he has exploded. Folks, that's what I call a win. Folks, there's more. My predecessor and his MAGA friends in Congress tried to repeal the Affordable Care Act, which is different. Obamacare. They tried to repeal it over 50 times. We stopped them. Along the way, I made the Affordable Care Act even stronger, protecting a million more Americans with pre-existing conditions. And guess what? There's over 40 million. MAGA Republicans in Congress don't want to cut Medicare, and so they want to cut Medicare and Social Security. Why? They want to give another, here's what they're proposing, just so you know what the budget is. They're proposing another $5 trillion tax cut for the mega wealthy. By the way, this guy we're running against, when he was president, he gave a $2 trillion tax cut to super wealthy. You know what that was? He generated the largest deficit any president has in American history. I love these Republicans talking about cutting spending. You know, we have 1,000 billionaires in America. You know what their average tax they pay is? 8.2%. Introduced a bill to say that you got to pay a minimum of 25%. You know what that would raise? $500 billion over the next 10 years. Imagine what we could do with that. Imagine the taxes we could cut for ordinary people. Well, look, Kamala and I have a better idea. We're going to protect Medicare and Social Security and make sure the wealthy pay their fair share. That's how we're going to pay for it. And by the way, that means making the tax code fair. Look, in addition, we also announced steps to crack down on anti-competitive practices in healthcare. How many of you know we've been going after things called junk fees? Junk health insurance plans. But ones that look affordable. When you take the cover off, you find out there's a number of hidden costs. We're going after them and trying to get rid of them. We're also cracking down on surprise medical billing. For example, when a patient goes in the hospital for surgery, if it turns out his anesthesiologist is not in his network, you can get a surprise bill for another $1,000. Well, we're stopping that too. We're protecting 1 million healthcare providers. We're protecting 1 million Americans every month from unexpected medical bills. We're working to ban the use of medical debt on credit reporting. Years ago, I had 2 craniotomies because I had aneurysms. My bill, if I didn't have insurance, was in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Well, guess what? It matters. It matters whether or not, if I didn't have insurance the rest of my life, I couldn't do anything. I wouldn't be able to buy anything, wouldn't be able to have a credit, wouldn't be able to. Now, we're going to get rid of health care costs being on your, you have to still owe it, but you don't have to get your credit doesn't affect it. Look, I'm a capitalist. I have no problem with companies making money, but not by price gouging seniors and working families. I grew up in a family where my dad used to say, Joey, a job's about a lot more than a paycheck. It's about your dignity. It's about respect. And I really mean this. This is what he would say. My dad was a well-read guy, never got a chance to go to college. He talked about what we needed to do for ordinary working, hard-working people. We changed the whole way we look at the economy. It used to be this idea of trickle-down economics. Even Democrats accepted it. Some Democratic presidents accepted it. That if you're wealthy, makes a lot of money, it'll trickle down to the rest of us. Well, I didn't notice a single penny trickle down on my dad's kitchen table. But guess what now? We measure everything the following way. We build from the middle out and the bottom up, and if they do well, everybody does well. Not a joke. And any money I get to spend as president, I spend it on being made in America by Americans. Americans don't like being played for suckers. We believe we should be patient, but there should be reasonable profits, not unreasonable profits. Look, let me close with this. It's all about health care. It's about lowering costs for families. It's about fairness and security. It's about the dignity for people like Judy and millions of Americans all across the country. That's exactly what we're doing. There's more we can do for everyone. We can't give up. They told me every major piece of legislation we passed to give us the strongest economy in history and the strongest economy in the world. We got more to do for working people. And by the way, everybody does better when there's more unions. But we're finally getting it done. We can't stop now. We just have to remember who in the hell we are. We're the United States of America. And there is nothing beyond our capacity in this country. We work together. Nothing. I'll tell you what, I thank God that in the last 3 months I'm President of the United States, I was able to finally get done what I tried to get done when I was a young senator at 30 years old. Thank you, God. Thank you. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops.
So that was President Biden and Vice President Harris announcing price cuts for 10 drugs covered under Medicare. A lot of talk there from President Biden about lowering the cost for medical bills for everyday Americans. I believe he mentioned lowering costs of insulin to $35 a month, $2,000 a month for all drugs for seniors.
Yeah, that's right. You know, he's talking about lowering prices of the 10 of the most popular and costliest Medicare drugs by 38 to 79% allegedly. This is one of the first of more price cuts that we could see in the future after changes to the way the federal government is allowed to negotiate price cuts with drug companies. Moving on, this deal President Biden is announcing today could, of course, lessen the financial burden on older adults who need drugs like Eliquis, Xarelto, and Jardiance, but not everyone thinks this is the best way forward. We speak with former Republican Congresswoman who served as chair of the Veterans Affairs Subcommittee on Health, Anne Marie Burkle. Anne Marie is also a retired nurse. Anne Marie Burkle, thank you so much for joining us. Who wins with this new deal?
Well, unfortunately, Big Pharma and the government wins with this new deal. It is not what it appears to be, as is oftentimes with this administration and with the vice president, now the presidential candidate. This is not something that's going to actually lower drug prices. And quite honestly, it's already being done in the private sector by what's known as a pharmacy benefit manager. They're negotiating these drug prices down on behalf of their plan, and they're the ones that can get the drug prices down, not the government.
Now, Anne Marie, this is the first deal after the Inflation Reduction Act allowed the government to negotiate drug prices. How do you view the new power that this act gives the federal government? I mean, you've touched on this a little bit, but can you expand?
I sure can, and I just will start out by saying the Inflation Reduction Act was not what it was supposed to be, and certainly did not reduce inflation, and we're seeing that by what's going on today. So, but let's get into the drug issue. Quite frankly, what they're doing is they're taking drugs that are already being negotiated by the private sector, by the PBMs, and they're saying, we're going to put our thumb on the scale, we're going to get involved. And I truly believe this is one more step towards Medicare for all, towards a complete government involvement in our healthcare. You've got, and I'll add to that by just saying it's more collusion between the government and Big Pharma.
Now, this is just the first negotiation, this deal that we're hearing about. There will be more drugs negotiated in future years. Where is this heading, do you think?
Well, I think, let me give, and for your listeners, this because we talked about how complicated this issue is, right? And it's hard for members of Congress, and it's hard for the general public to understand about the cost of healthcare. Let me do this. When pharma sets a price on drugs, it's artificially set. Let's say it's $100. The pharmacy benefit manager can negotiate that down to, say, $40 for the healthcare plan that they're negotiating on behalf of. What this piece of the Inflation Reduction Act does is it sets the retail price, so that $100 that's artificially set, at $50, and then there's no more negotiation. So in fact, the government will be losing, certainly the taxpayers as well as the participants in these plans, they'll be losing $10 on this deal. And it's just an insertion of the government into the cost of drugs when in fact the private sector is already dealing with it.
How do you think it will play out long term for Medicare recipients?
I think ultimately what's going to happen, and I'm sure many of your listeners already have seen their premiums go up and their choices go down, whether it's for healthcare or their drugs. We've seen two significant cuts to Medicare Advantage by the Biden-Harris administration. We've seen an all-out attack, and we've heard the presidential nominee Harris say she wants Medicare for all. So I think seniors will be feeling and have already felt, I'm guessing many of them have, an increase in their premium and a decrease in their choices.
All right, Anne-Marie Burkle, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
When we come back, authorities arrest at least one person in connection with Matthew Perry's death. He died from an accidental ketamine overdose last year. We'll have more on that story after the break.
And an update on former President Trump's New York criminal case. A letter from Trump's lawyer has been made public. Stay tuned.
Does shopping for bladder control products have you feeling like you need someone to be on the lookout for you? Now you have your privacy back. We're HDIS, and we home deliver bladder control products directly to you. We're always on the lookout for you. You get free shipping in plain, unmarked boxes. So your private matters stay private. We understand how you feel. For over 35 years, we've delivered bladder control products to millions of Americans, just like you. You don't have to worry about incontinence any longer. Call now for your free product sample pack and over $45 in money-saving coupons. At HDIS, we're always in stock. We carry all brands in hundreds of styles and sizes. You'll be sure to get what you need, guaranteed.
For your free sample pack with your free catalog and $45 in money-saving coupons and free product samples, call 800-701-6159. That's 800-701-6159.
One in 5 children worldwide are faced with the reality of living without food. No family dinners, no special treats, not enough energy to play. All around the world, hunger is affecting children's physical and mental health. Toddlers are suffering from acute malnutrition, which stunts their growth. Kids are forced to drop out of school so they can help support their families. Conflict, inflation, and climate have ignited the worst famine in our lifetime. And we are fed up. Fed up that hunger devours dreams. Fed up that hunger destroys joy. Fed up with the fact that hunger eats childhood. Help us feed the futures of children all over the world by visiting givetosave.org. For as little as $10 a month, you can join Save the Children as we support children and families in desperate need of our help. Now is the time to get fed up and give back. When you join the cause, your $10 monthly donation can help communities in need of life-saving treatments and nutrients, prevent children from dropping out of school, support our work with communities and governments to help children go from short-term surviving to long-term thriving. And now, thanks to special government grants, every dollar you give can multiply up to 10 times the impact. That means more food, water, medicine, and help for kids around the world. You'll also receive a free tote bag to share your support for children in need. Having your childhood eaten away by hunger is unimaginable. Get fed up. Call us now or visit givetosave.org today.
Welcome back. In California, authorities have charged at least 5 people in connection with Matthew Perry's death.
That's right. The actor was found dead in his hot tub from an accidental ketamine overdose last year.
At least 2 people have been arrested. They're Jasvin Sanga, a drug dealer, and Salvador Plasencia, a doctor. They're accused of distributing the drug to Perry. In Perry's autopsy, they found that the amount of ketamine in his blood was in the range used for general anesthesia during surgery. The drug has seen a huge rise in use in recent years as a treatment for depression, anxiety, and pain.
People close to Perry told investigators that he was undergoing ketamine infusion therapy. The medical examiner said Perry's last treatment more than a week earlier wouldn't explain the levels of ketamine in his blood. The coroner ruled his death an accident by drowning and said other medical issues were contributing factors.
Good morning. My name is Martin Estrada. I'm the United States Attorney based in Los Angeles. We're here today with our law enforcement partners to announce federal criminal charges related to the death of the actor Matthew Perry. Following Mr. Perry's death in October of last year, law enforcement, my office, and our partners represented on this stage began an in-depth, wide-ranging investigation. That investigation has revealed a broad, underground criminal network responsible for distributing large quantities of ketamine to Mr. Perry and others. This network included a live-in assistant, various go-betweens, 2 medical doctors, and a major source of drug supply known as, quote, the ketamine queen. We charged 5 defendants in this matter. These defendants took advantage of Mr. Perry's addiction issues to enrich themselves. They knew what they were doing was wrong. They knew what they were doing was risking great danger to Mr. Perry, but they did it anyways. In the end, these defendants were more interested in profiting off Mr. Perry than caring for his well-being. I'm going to talk about the indictment, the allegations, and the charges in more detail. On October 28, 2023, Mr. Perry was found deceased in his home. An autopsy was conducted following his death. That autopsy showed that he had died due to the acute effects of ketamine. Ketamine is a controlled substance. It has some legitimate uses, but it is also used illegally. It is used by people seeking to disassociate from reality. It can cause serious health effects, serious health problems, including loss of consciousness, including spikes in blood pressure, and including respiratory issues that can deprive the brain of oxygen. For that reason, it is a drug that must be administered by medical professionals, and the patient must be monitored closely. That did not occur here. This investigation focused on who supplied the ketamine to Mr. Perry. As many of you know, Mr. Perry struggled with addiction in the past. And on many occasions, he sought help for his addiction issues. The investigation revealed that in the fall of 2023, Mr. Perry fell back into addiction, and these defendants took advantage to profit for themselves. The 2 lead defendants in this case are defendants Salvador Plasencia and defendant Jasvin Sanya. First, I'll talk about defendant Plasencia. Defendant Plasencia was a medical doctor. He worked with another medical doctor, defendant Mark Chavez, to obtain ketamine. He then worked with Mr. Perry's live-in assistant, defendant Kenneth Iwamasa, to distribute that ketamine to Mr. Perry. Over 2 months, from September to October 2023, they distributed approximately 20 vials of ketamine to Mr. Perry in exchange for $55,000 in cash. Defendant Plasencia saw this as an opportunity to profit off of Mr. Perry. He wrote in a text message in September 2023, quote, "I wonder how much this moron will pay." He also stated in text messages that he wanted to be Mr. Perry's sole source of supply. He wrote in a text message that he wanted to be Mr. Perry's, quote, "go-to for drugs." As a doctor, defendant Plasencia knew full well the danger of what he was doing. In fact, on one occasion, he injected Mr. Perry with ketamine, and he saw Mr. Perry freeze up and his blood pressure spike. Despite that, he left additional vials of ketamine for defendant Iwamasa to administer to Mr. Perry. Of course, defendant Iwamasa had no medical training to speak of. Defendant Plasencia knew what he was doing was harming Mr. Perry. He had spoken to another patient in mid-October 2023, and he told that patient that Mr. Perry was spiraling out of control with his addiction. Nonetheless, defendant Plasencia continued to offer ketamine to Mr. Perry. Likewise, defendant Sanya knew what she was doing was harming defendant defendants and also Mr. Perry. She took advantage of Mr. Perry by selling large amounts of ketamine to Mr. Perry over a 2-week period in October of 2023. She sold approximately 50 vials of ketamine for approximately $11,000 in cash. She worked with a broker, defendant Eric Fleming, and also the live-in assistant, defendant Iwamasa, to distribute this ketamine. Sonia and the broker, defendant Fleming, saw this as an opportunity to profit off of Mr. Perry. In a text message, the broker wrote, quote, "I wouldn't do it if there wasn't a chance of me making some money for doing this." Defendant Sonia sold the batch of ketamine that resulted in Mr. Perry's death on October 28th. Officers later searched defendant Sonia's home. During that search, they found what amounted to a drug-selling emporium. They found 80 vials of ketamine, thousands of pills containing methamphetamine, cocaine, bottles of Xanax and other illegally obtained prescription drugs, and drug-selling paraphernalia, including scales and ledgers. As I mentioned, the defendants in this case knew what they were doing was wrong. When they'd refer to the ketamine, they used coded language. They'd refer to it using terms such as, quote, Dr. Pepper, or quote, bots, or quote, cans. Also, defendants Placencia and Chavez, as medical doctors, knew full well this was not the proper way to administer ketamine, and they even talked about that in their exchanges. And defendant Sonia also knew that she was doing something that caused great risk to Mr. Perry. In fact, during this investigation, we learned that several years before, in 2019, defendant Sonia had sold ketamine to another customer. That person died the same day, and a family member of that person sent a message to defendant Sonia telling her the cause of death was ketamine. Nonetheless, defendant Sonia continued selling drugs, including ketamine, including the ketamine that ultimately killed Mr. Perry. That other victim was a person named Cody McLaury. He died in 2019. As a result of this investigation, we have filed a drug distribution charge related to the death of Mr. McLaury. After Mr. Perry died, these defendants tried to cover up what they had done. On October 28th, after reading news reports of Mr. Perry's death, defendant Sonia wrote a text message to defendant Fleming saying, quote, delete all our messages. Likewise, after Mr. Perry's death, defendant Placencia falsified medical records and notes to try to make it look like what he was doing was legitimate. It was not. We have filed numerous federal charges against the 5 defendants. These charges include conspiracy to distribute ketamine, distribution of ketamine resulting in death, maintaining drug-involved premises.
That was a news conference held by an attorney for Los Angeles. Chris, some shocking details there, revealing that the ketamine that was supplied to Matthew Perry and that which ultimately caused his death were from an underground criminal network that involved 2 doctors and someone called the Ketamine Queen.
That's right. The lawyer called it, quote, a broad underground criminal network supplying Perry. 5 people have been charged in the investigation into Perry's death. One of them was actually knew that this drug was harming Perry and that had sold some of it to another person who had died the same day. She sold it to him. It looks like these people are in pretty big trouble.
Yeah, some very shocking details. Moving on, an update on former President Trump's New York criminal case. His attorneys are asking the judge to postpone sentencing until after the presidential election in November. Trump was convicted in May of 34 felony counts of falsifying business records. He's currently scheduled to be sentenced on September 18th. In a letter made public today, Trump's lawyers suggested that sentencing Trump as scheduled would amount to election interference. The lawyer wrote that a delay would also allow Trump time to weigh his next steps, such as an appeal.
Next, for more on the former president's request to postpone sentencing in his New York criminal case, we're joined live by Jonathan Houlihan, General Counsel and Director of Legal Operations at Citizens Defending Freedom. Jonathan, it's good to have you back on the show. Thank you so much for joining us. How do you think Judge Juan Merchan will respond to Trump's request to delay sentencing?
Well, I mean, I can tell you how he should respond. They should certainly delay it until after the election. I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to deny the request. As you talked about, the letter that was released publicly goes into a lot of detail about requesting why it should be delayed until after the 2024 election. They argue several points, mainly, the delay is necessary in light of the Supreme Court decision on presidential immunity, Trump versus United States, but also just the appearance of impropriety and the necessity to mitigate any potential conflicts of interest between the judge and his daughter, who is a fundraiser for the DNC.
And on what grounds is Trump arguing his sentencing date be postponed?
Well, there's several. Really, they're waiting for the presidential immunity to kind of shake out, because Judge Merchan is not supposed to rule on that until a couple days before the sentencing. So it doesn't really give a lot of time for appeals. Should they appeal the immunity decision, I believe it's September 14th is when that decision is supposed to come out. And then the sentencing is supposed to be September 16th, I believe. Don't hold me to that. So it only gives a couple days where they can file an appeal on that decision. But additionally, also the immunity issue, as far as, look, the court has said I have immunity on these official acts that took place. That said, several of the folks that testified in that hearing, in that business records case, were part of his official presidential team. So a lot of testimony that came out was from official acts or during official acts. So they need to shake all those issues out. Those are all arguments they've made. Additionally, just the fact that they're in this window of the election season, right? This is they called it naked election interference. So those are some of the main arguments they made. Plus this argument about Judge Merchan's daughter is a huge fundraiser, and there's a conflict of interest, and they need to let that shake out as well.
Jonathan, as you've touched on, whether or not this case goes forward at all depends on how the judge decides to rule on Trump's claim of presidential immunity in this case. What do you expect to see in that ruling on September 16th?
I expect them to go full steam ahead. I don't expect them to give the Trump legal team 1 inch. I mean, they haven't really this entire case. Again, I mean, you don't forget about the Supreme Court ruling out there about they need a unanimous decision on the felony level case. So I don't expect him to give any leeway to the president or his legal team, and I expect him to deny this letter. I expect him to try and move forward and sentence the president. Hopefully, it's not to jail time. Hopefully, it's to something lesser than that. But you never know. I mean, some crazy things have happened in this election season, and a lot of lawfare has taken place. So we can only hope for the rule of law. Hope justice is blind. We can all hope and pray, and we'll see what the outcome is.
Yeah, you're right. So many crazy things have happened in this election cycle, and just in recent years, I've just developed this habit of just not developing any expectations and expecting the craziest thing to happen in any circumstance. Who knows?
No, that's a good outlook, Chris. I agree with you, Chris. I mean, if you have your low expectations on what some things are going to happen in this election season, you can't be too surprised. But look, nothing surprises me anymore. So I really hope justice prevails here, but I'm not optimistic.
Right. I mean, we've had 2.5 months since Trump was convicted in this case that we're talking about. How do you view that case in retrospect?
Oh, I think it's a travesty of justice. I mean, the president and his legal team didn't even have a firm grasp on what he was being charged with until the end. I mean, it was a business records case. He paid his attorney to settle a case like he would anything else, and this whole thing was whether or not the business records were accurate. And they throw in a lot of this salacious testimony about whether or not he was a bad guy and things he did or things he said. All of these things were led in the trial. And then at the end, they said, well, he wasn't sure what he was being charged with. In the end, they rung him up with a felony at the very end. And that's where we sit today. So my opinion has not changed on the matter that they kind of got railroaded in a lot of ways. And hopefully with these legal decisions from the court coming out now, justice will prevail. Again, I'm not optimistic, but we can always hope.
Well, we'll see in September, and there's so many other cases I'd love to get into you with right now, but that's all the time that we have. Jonathan Houlihan, Director of Legal Operations at Citizens Defending Freedom, thank you again.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
In election news, Democratic vice presidential nominee Tim Walz has agreed to debate Republican rival JD Vance on October 1st. That's one of the proposed dates by CBS News. The network says it provided the campaigns 4 possible dates for the debate. Vance also says he's willing to debate Walz on CNN on September 18th. Vance says he wants to debate Walz more than once. And meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris will debate former President Donald Trump on ABC News on September 10th.
And independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has responded to multiple reports suggesting he would endorse Vice President Kamala Harris. Multiple media outlets reported that RFK Jr. requested a meeting with Harris to discuss serving in her administration. The reports cited Kennedy campaign officials. They reportedly said if Kennedy supported Harris and she won, Kennedy would get a position in her administration. He wrote a long post on X today saying, quote, "I have no plans to endorse Kamala Harris for president. I do have a plan to defeat her." He said he cannot support the Democratic Party due to its differences with the party of his father and uncle. He added he believes today's Democrats are aligned with big tech, big pharma, and Wall Street. Police in Virginia say they know who broke into the Trump campaign office in Ashburn on Sunday. They're looking for 39-year-old Toby Kessler. The Loudoun County Sheriff's Office says Kessler broke into the office through a back door. Authorities say they aren't sure if he took anything. Police think Kessler has lived in Metro Washington since 2018, but he has a California driver's license and no fixed address. Investigators say he has a history of criminal behavior. The sheriff's office says it has a warrant for Kessler's arrest on one charge of burglary. The office said it still didn't know if he took anything, but appears to have left nothing behind. Law enforcement is asking the public for any information that can help find him.
Coming up, more updates about the Israel-Hamas war. A new round of hostage and ceasefire talks has resumed in Doha, Qatar. We have the State Department's briefing on that after the break.
The 2024 NTD 9th International Chinese Vocal Competition is scheduled to take place at Merkin Hall, Kaufman Music Center in New York from September 18th to 21st. The competition specially invites vocalists from the world-famous Shenyun Performing Arts to serve as judges. The prestigious Gold Award is $10,000. Chinese vocal artists aged 18 to 50 are welcome to register.
As we naturally age, many people are getting zero amount of this incredible and unique substance. That's when we start seeing an impact in our joints, skin, nails, and even our digestion.
People ask me, Dr. X, what is the #1 supplement I should be taking? My answer is multi-collagen protein.
People's reactions to me, people were like, what are you doing? What is going on? You look amazing. You have a glow about you.
What makes Ancient Nutrition Multi-Collagen stand out from other brands? 10 types of collagen. It's grass-fed, pasture-raised with vitamin C and probiotics. It's proven to reduce joint discomfort rapidly, continuously, and persistently. It improves the appearance of crow's feet after 4 weeks and improves skin tone after 8 weeks. And it promotes hair thickness, growth, and a reduction in hair breakage.
it has transformed everything from my hair. Like, my hair was starting to kind of just, you know, come out and I don't have that anymore. My skin feels amazing.
Call the number on your screen and find out how to get a free bottle when you order, plus free shipping and our 30-day money-back guarantee. And as a bonus, we will include Dr. Josh Axe and Jordan Rubin's revolutionary book, Multi-Collagen Makeover, free with your order, plus free shipping and free returns.
I have implicit trust in Dr. Axe because the plan worked. I'm living proof of it.
This is the collagen protein that is backed by clinical studies. It's what my family uses, it's what I use, and I know you're gonna benefit in a big way as well.
Love the results or get your money back. This special TV offer is not available in stores. Call the number on your screen or go online now.
Welcome back to Newsroom. More updates coming in about the Israel-Hamas war. A new round of hostage and ceasefire talks has resumed in Doha, Qatar. They are expected to continue through tomorrow.
Both sides need to show compromise. Both sides need to show some leadership here. We are now talking about the implementing details of the deal itself, the smaller gaps that we absolutely believe can be narrowed in terms of how the deal is executed. It's not about a debate in Doha today about the deal itself, the structure of it. It's now about implementing.
Israeli officials, as well as mediators from the U.S., Egypt, and Qatar, are present for the talks. The Hamas terrorist group has said they are staying out of the talks, but they said their members in Qatar are willing to discuss any proposals from the mediators following the talks. The White House has hoped that a ceasefire deal would help avert a wider conflict in the Middle East. President Biden has suggested that Iran might hold off its planned attack on Israel if a ceasefire deal is reached, that is. The White House says it's working feverishly to get this ceasefire deal in place. Mediators have spent months trying to negotiate a three-phase agreement in which the terror group would release hostages in exchange for a lasting ceasefire, the withdrawal of Israeli forces, and the release of Palestinian prisoners. A State Department spokesperson said this about the talks.
The fastest way to create improved conditions for all, including the Palestinian people, including Palestinian civilians, is for the parties to accept and finalize this deal for an immediate ceasefire, hostages released, and increased humanitarian aid and safe civilian return. And we really hope that with the process that restarted today, that is what is awaiting for us at the other side of the finish line. Talks are moving forward in Doha. That process is happening. And there are representatives on the ground there from Israel, from the United States, from Qatar and Egypt, and Qatar and Egypt are, as part of that process, are mediating with Hamas. There's broad agreement on the contours of what President Biden laid out at the end of May. What we are talking about now is some specific details, some specific implementing factors. There are, of course, still gaps and things that need to be bridged in that space, but when we're talking about the overall framework, that has been generally accepted, and that continues to be the case.
Now, turning our attention to the Atlantic hurricane season.
Hurricane Ernesto is gaining strength as it heads towards Bermuda.
Ernesto was forecast to become a major Category 3 hurricane tomorrow and then decrease in strength as it approaches Bermuda. A hurricane warning is in effect for Bermuda. Ernesto is expected to pass near or over the island on Saturday. It is expected to drop between 4 to 8 inches of rain.
Meanwhile, Puerto Rico is recovering from damaging wind gusts and flooding rain caused by the storm. Over 450,000 customers remained in the dark more than a day after Ernesto brushed past the island. At least 350,000 customers across Puerto Rico were also without power.
T-Mobile will pay a $60 million settlement over alleged data breach violations. That's the largest ever fine by the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States. According to multiple outlets, T-Mobile failed to disclose and take action against data leaks that occurred after its $26 billion merger with Sprint in 2020 and therefore violated a national security agreement for the merger. A spokesperson for T-Mobile said the incident happened because of technical issues during its post-merger integration and said the breach did not impact customer information.
U.S. retail sales unexpectedly surged in July, rising by a solid 1% from June. That exceeds economists' expectations of a 0.3% gain. The Commerce Department released the figures earlier today. Retail sales, which are adjusted for seasonal swings but not inflation, make up a sizable chunk of overall spending. July's reading is a boon for the U.S. economy because the country's economic growth hinges on Americans spending their dollars. Sales jumped across most categories, including car dealerships, electronics, and grocery stores. Walmart today reported a 4.2% increase in sales last quarter, while some retailers like Home Depot reported a drop in sales. The company's CEO says it's due to higher interest rates and economic uncertainty.
After the break, former President Trump is scheduled to have a press conference at his Bedminster Golf Resort in New Jersey later this afternoon at around 4:30 p.m. Eastern. We'll have that for you and more. Stay tuned.
I'm Ilka. I live with my daughter and with my grandchildren. There's a sense of comfort that comes with eating a good meal. We try to make the most, of what we have. We have rent to pay, and then there are lights and there are gas. And while my daughter and I both work, it still just doesn't seem like there's enough to go around sometimes.
Every day, millions of our neighbors face hunger, including 1 in 5 children, and food costs keep rising. Please call or go online right now to join Feeding America with your gift of just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day. Your monthly support can fill plates with nutritious food for families across the country and in your community, thanks to a nationwide network of food banks and volunteers.
If you were over and playing with us, you were part of our family and you were going to eat. A real cook can take nothing and make something.
No one should ever have to wonder if they will have enough to eat, and our neighbors are working hard to feed their families every day. Call or go online now. Visit helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month. 98% of donations go directly to help millions of people facing hunger from coast to coast and in your own community. Use your credit card and you'll get this exclusive canvas grocery bag as a thank you for joining hands with people across America to help end hunger.
Some of the lessons that I hope that my family will take, it is important to treat people the way that you want to be treated. I have carried on the tradition of loving people through food.
Please call right now or go online to make a monthly gift at helpfeedingamerica.org. Your support helps our neighbors bring food home to their families.
There is a road laid out for me.
Boxes everywhere. And this is going to be Addie's room.
I am blind,
You're really going to like it.
I hope so. Yeah. I know this road is there for me.
First night here, but Amy seems cool.
Waist down by the river. I am blind, but I need not see.
I got this.
I know this road is there for me.
Okay.
If I'm really free, take me down to the river and wash me.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G.
And I'm Chris Beers.
President Biden announcing price cuts on popular drugs. It's a result of Medicare's first ever direct negotiations with drug makers.
And former President Trump is scheduled to have a press conference at his Bedminster golf resort in New Jersey. Later this afternoon, that is, at around 4:30 p.m. Eastern. We'll have that for you.
President Biden says he would support new elections in Venezuela. This is after the U.S. rejected the legitimacy of incumbent President Nicolas Maduro's claim to victory. Venezuela's opposition leader reacts.
Democratic vice presidential nominee Tim Walz will debate Republican rival JD Vance. They've agreed on one of the debate dates proposed by CBS News.
Columbia University President Minouche Shafik has resigned after months of controversy. We have the latest on college campus unrest.
Authorities arrest at least one person in connection with Friends star Matthew Perry's death. He died from an accidental ketamine overdose last year. What do we know?
Hurricane Ernesto doing damage to Puerto Rico and heading toward Bermuda. The FAA says flights are affected and there's risk of dangerous currents on the East Coast.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
President Joe Biden today said he would support new elections in Venezuela after the United States and its allies rejected the legitimacy of incumbent Nicolas Maduro's victory. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva had proposed that Venezuela hold a new presidential election following the contested results of last month's vote. Earlier today, Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado rejected the idea. Machado told Argentine media that redoing the election would be an insult to Venezuelans. Brazil is South America's largest nation and shares one of Venezuela's longest land borders. Unlike many other nations, Brazil, Colombia, and Mexico have taken a more neutral stance by neither rejecting nor accepting the results. The three countries called on Venezuela's electoral body to release tens of thousands of vote tally sheets.
Former President Donald Trump is making some changes to his 2024 campaign team, and they include the return of his 2016 campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski. Chris LaCivita and his Susie Wiles will continue to manage the campaign. They say Lewandowski is being brought on to help navigate the changed political landscape along with a number of other previous Trump campaign veterans. Lewandowski was Trump's campaign manager for a year during the 2016 election season. He left his position after a series of controversial stories and was replaced with Paul Manafort.
An update on former President Trump's New York criminal case. His attorneys are asking the judge to postpone sentencing until after the presidential election in November. Trump was convicted in May of 34 felony counts of falsifying business records. He's currently scheduled to be sentenced on September 18th. In a letter made public today, Trump's lawyers suggested that sentencing Trump as scheduled would amount to election interference. The lawyer wrote that a delay would also allow Trump time to weigh his next steps, such as an appeal. Vice President Kamala Harris is expected to call for a federal ban on price gouging to lower grocery prices. The Democratic presidential nominee will unveil the details in her first economic policy speech in Raleigh, North Carolina tomorrow. The proposal is part of Harris's efforts to prevent corporations in the food and grocery industries from hiking up prices. The Harris campaign says Friday's speech is a small part of a larger plan she will roll out to tackle high costs and inflation. Harris is also expected to draw a contrast between her and former President Trump's economic agenda. Democratic vice presidential nominee Tim Walz has agreed to debate Republican rival JD Vance on October 1st. That's one of 4 dates proposed by CBS News.
And Vance today agreeing to 2 debates against Tim Walz. He wrote on X that not only do I accept the CBS debate on October 1st, I accept the CNN debate on September 18th as well. At a campaign event yesterday, Vance said he first heard about debates yesterday.
We just wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to do a real exchange of views. That was my only directive, and I told my staff, agree to whatever we have to agree to, because I think it's important, again, that you stand before the American people and actually ask for their vote, not just pretend it's going to be given to you.
Police in Virginia say they know who broke into the Trump campaign office in Ashburn on Sunday. They are looking for 39-year-old Toby Kessler. The Loudoun County Sheriff's Office says Kessler broke into the office through a back door. Authorities say they aren't sure if he took anything. Police think Kessler had lived in Metro Washington since 2018, but he has a California driver's license and no fixed address. Investigators say he has a history of criminal behavior. The Sheriff's Office says it has a warrant for Kessler's arrest on one charge of burglary. The office said it still didn't know if he took anything, but appears to have left nothing behind. Law enforcement is asking the public for any information that can help find him.
Google is sounding the alarm about tech threats against the 2024 presidential election. The tech giant says an alleged Iranian hacking operation is ongoing against the Harris and Trump campaigns, and it's more far-reaching than previously known. Current U.S. officials are targeted, including those with ties to President Biden, Vice President Harris, and former President Trump. Google researchers said a hacking group linked to Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps targeted the personal email accounts of about a dozen people associated with Biden and Trump. Officials at the tech giant say they've been forwarding authorities information on the hackings and are continuing to cooperate. Google said yesterday it touched base with both the Harris and Trump campaigns. The company stressed the need to enhance account security protections. In California, authorities have charged at least 5 people in connection with Matthew Perry's death.
That's right. The actor was found dead in his hot tub from an accidental ketamine overdose last year.
At least 2 people have been arrested. They're Yasmin Sanya, a drug dealer, and Salvador Plasencia, a doctor. They're accused of distributing the drug to Perry. In Perry's autopsy, they found that the amount of ketamine in his blood was in the range used for general anesthesia during surgery. The drug has seen a huge rise in use in recent years as a treatment for depression, anxiety, and pain.
People close to Perry told investigators that he was undergoing ketamine infusion therapy. The medical examiner said Perry's last treatment more than a week earlier wouldn't explain the levels of ketamine in his blood. The coroner ruled his death an accident by drowning and said other medical issues were contributing factors. And here is today's press conference.
This network included a live-in assistant, various go-betweens, 2 medical doctors, and a major source of drug supply known as, quote, the ketamine queen. We charged 5 defendants in this matter. These defendants took advantage of Mr. Perry's addiction issues to enrich themselves. They knew what they were doing was wrong. They knew what they were doing was risking great danger to Mr. Perry, but they did it anyways. In the end, these defendants were more interested in profiting off Mr. Perry than caring for his well-being.
The Biden administration said it struck a deal with drug companies to lower the price of popular Medicare drugs. It's a key talking point in the run-up to the presidential election. The White House says Medicare's new power to negotiate drug prices could lead to an estimated $1.5 billion reduction in out-of-pocket costs for seniors and an estimated $6 billion in savings for the federal government. The initial discussions focused on 10 of the most widely used and expensive drugs taken by people enrolled to Medicare. Drug makers have tried to quash the program in federal court, but have proved unsuccessful. The negotiation program was authorized by the 2022 Inflation Reduction Act.
Speaker Mike Johnson posting on social media platform X a joint statement on the Biden-Harris administration Medicare price negotiation. Johnson says the Inflation Reduction Act has hurt the U.S. economy and healthcare system. It criticized the law's provision to control prescription drug prices, saying it has led to fewer options and higher costs for patients, and that it has harmed the American pharmaceutical industry's global competitiveness.
Next, U.S. retail sales unexpectedly surged in July, rising by a solid 1% from June. The Commerce Department released the figures earlier today. This marks a positive sign for the U.S. economy as economic growth relies on consumer spending. Sales jumped across most categories, including car dealerships, electronics, and grocery stores. Walmart today reported a 4.2% increase in sales last quarter, while some retailers like Home Depot reported a drop in sales. The company's CEO said it's due to higher interest rates and economic uncertainty. The Fed is still expected to cut rates next month, given the softening job market and progress in controlling inflation.
Walmart topped nearly all sales expectations after another strong quarter. The retailer's comparatively low prices drew millions of customers who continue to struggle with rising costs for housing, groceries, and most everyday essentials. Walmart was among the first major U.S. retailers to release quarterly results. The Bentonville, Arkansas-based company reported earnings of $4.5 billion. Sales rose nearly 4.8%, bringing in more than $169 billion. Walmart also reported a more promising full-year outlook, a sign of confidence in its business model. Company executives said consumers may still be holding out for deals, but they're not seeing signs of any weaker demand. Shares jumped nearly 7% today. Columbia University's president has resigned. Minouche Shafik announced her resignation last night in a memo sent to the Columbia community. Shafik was one of the university leaders called before Congress earlier this year. She's now the third president of an Ivy League school to step down over campus protests of the Israel-Hamas war. This just a week after 3 deans at Columbia resigned. That was over text messages involving anti-Semitic tropes. Shafik has been under scrutiny for months for her handling of anti-Semitism on campus. She had refused calls to resign until now. Student protesters have vowed to resume protests when the fall semester starts in a few weeks. Joining us now to discuss these latest developments live is Zachary Marshall, editor-in-chief of Campus Reform. Zachary, good to see you. There's been pressure for Shafik to step down now for months. Why is it happening now?
Yeah, it's great to be here. What we saw is that Shafik was spending months going back and forth and waffling over her policy that failed to protect Jewish students on campus, and she was trying to hold the support of the trustees together. My instinct, I've been covering this for months as part of Leadership Institute's Campus Reform's coverage. She recently entertained the idea that they would use campus security officers to exact force on students who protested in the fall. I think that was the final nail in the coffin that ended her tenure as president. But the bigger picture right now is that this is the third Ivy League president to resign over this issue. Universities are going into the fall semester completely unprepared to make campus violence any less violent, any less dangerous for students than it was in the spring semester.
I think you make a very interesting point there that these universities are going into the new semester with very little preparation. I've also spoken to parents and students who are college hunting right now. They're really hesitant to apply to these Ivy League schools or other big name schools precisely because of the unrest that they've been seeing over the past few months, over the past year, really. They're really worried, but at the same time, these parents want their kids to get the best education. They want them to have the best footing in life. Do these universities recognize this?
I don't think they do. And I've spoken to dozens of parents, students, those who are Jewish, pro-Israel, and what we're seeing is that there's now a ground shift happening. People who are concerned about this issue are starting to reevaluate what makes a good university, what makes an elite university. They're starting to see, equal protection in all cases of discrimination, and also the ability to enforce law and order and respect for American values are what constitute a good university. But people like Shafik or Claudine Gay or Miguel at UPenn, these are elite university leaders that think that global cosmopolitanism, that anti-Semitism, that anti-American curriculum shows their sophistication, and they've been wrong on that. I think they are completely out of touch with the reality of how dangerous the situation is going to be in the fall, and they're out of touch with average Americans, what they care about in terms of getting a good education.
Yeah, what have you been hearing from these average Americans? What does the atmosphere on these campuses feel like right now for students?
I've spoken to a bunch of students who have been crying in their dorms because they're scared of the people who live down the hall from them, because those people are among the instigators who did the anti-Israel and anti-Semitic protests. I've spoken to students who've told me they just tried to get to class during the tent encampments in the spring, and they were told to go back to Poland, that Hitler was right to gas their ancestors. And these were comments that they heard while they were struggling to get into the buildings. UCLA just got a court order to allow Jewish students into buildings. It is pathetic and embarrassing that our best universities, the universities supposed to lead the world, have to have a judge tell them you're not allowed to have pro-Hamas students block access to class buildings for Jewish students they don't like.
Yeah, you mentioned this hateful speech, these actions that are really scary for students. And we saw these actions and protests spread to schools everywhere. MIT, UCLA, you mentioned Harvard, even spread across the ocean to Italy, Bangladesh. But now school is starting again very soon. Do you see these protests restarting once students get back to campus?
100% they're going to restart, and we're going to see a tale of two Americas, really. On one hand, you're going to see places like Northwestern University and Rutgers that had very tenuous agreements, and I'm using that term lightly, with these protesters to disband in the spring. But those agreements are going to fall apart. Even at Brown University, they're going to hold a vote this fall to think about divesting from Israel. If those measures don't go the way the students want, we can expect more violence and more extreme violence. But then on the other hand, we also have places like University of Florida, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, that took a firm stand against these types of protests and used law enforcement quickly and appropriately to quell disruptive activism. And I think we're going to see, in the South at big state universities with high commuter populations, more normalcy, of greater respect for law and order, and a greater respect for, diversity and tolerance for people who have different religious or ethnic identities.
Yeah, you make a very good point there. And just to wrap up, this really is a balancing act for schools. On the one hand, universities have to ensure students have their freedom of speech, but at the same time, they have to ensure that these destructive behaviors don't keep happening. So what can they do in that situation to balance that?
Well, what's the most frustrating thing about this entire situation is that there's very little new that needs to be done to have prevented any of this from happening last year. The biggest thing that needs to be done is very simple, and that is just enforce existing code of conduct and anti-discrimination policies that are on the books already equally to all, in all cases of racism or ethnic or religious-based discrimination. Universities chose not to do that, and I applaud the new laws and regulations we're seeing, especially coming out of Ohio, that are now forcing public and private universities there to expand anti-discrimination policies to include the types of anti-Semitism we saw last year that President Shafiq herself admitted during her congressional testimony Columbia was unprepared for, and they did not know how to handle it. So that's the challenge. Have these universities done the work over the summer to use and enforce these policies correctly in the fall?
Well, here's to hoping that this is a peaceful upcoming school year. Zachary Marshall, Editor-in-Chief of Campus Reform, thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up, Hurricane Ernesto doing damage to Puerto Rico and heading towards Bermuda.
And the FAA says flights are affected and there are risks of dangerous rip currents on the U.S. East Coast.
Ukraine now has a military commandant's office in the occupied parts of Russia. How the Kremlin is reacting to avoid further losses along its border. That and more after the break.
When I drink it, the first thing was I feel the warmth in my tummy. It's kind of like gently radiating out, a kind of a very comforting warmth. And it was really good, actually. I felt much better. I did feel, actually, an effect. And I find that it is actually better when I take it regularly.
It's actually steamed and dried 9 times. And so it's really, the essence is really extracted.
then a second time, I tried it really like on an empty stomach and just 2 teaspoons of it, and over a few times. And wow, that was a big difference, because suddenly I could feel, wow, I was very good energized. I didn't have to eat. I could work outside in the garden for a couple of hours, and I still felt very well. And I was impressed by that. So I think it's a good product.
What if you could whiten your teeth by simply brushing your teeth? Now you can with Smile Actives, the teeth whitening breakthrough that safely gets your teeth white and keeps them white every day, just by brushing your teeth.
I never thought that whitening my teeth could be so easy. I just put the gel on the brush, the toothpaste on it, brush, and I can see my white teeth.
Simply add Smile Actives to any toothpaste, and our patented PolyClean technology activates into a powerful microfoam that penetrates into the enamel surface to safely lift and remove stains.
You need a simple way to whiten your teeth, without strips, without trays, without going to the dentist. And it was about time that a product was developed that you would be able to do that with just brushing.
And now, Smile Actives is even better with new Pro Whitening Gel with 33% greater whitening power, clinically shown to whiten teeth faster, up to 8 shades. 100% of users saw whiter teeth. On food stains, coffee and wine stains, even on veneers, crowns, and dentures.
I eat the blueberries, I drink the coffee, and I know that Smile Actives will keep my teeth white every day.
If you could use something so easy like Smile Actives to take yellow teeth to white teeth, why wouldn't you?
Why spend hundreds of dollars for whitening treatments at the dentist when now you can whiten your teeth with new Smile Actives Pro Whitening Gel every time you brush your teeth? Call or go to smileactives.com, and for a limited time, get new Pro Whitening Gel for just $24.95. Order in the next 5 minutes and buy one, get one absolutely free for just $24.95. That's 2 for 1 and save 58%. We'll even include free shipping. Get your teeth whiter guaranteed, or return it within 60 days for your money back.
I smile every day now.
The difference is literally night and day.
So now I'm always smiling, always choosing, because now my teeth are much whiter.
This offer is not available in stores, so call or click now before the special buy one, get one free offer goes away.
Welcome back. Hurricane Ernesto is expected to be near Bermuda on Saturday. This comes as hundreds of thousands of Puerto Ricans are still without power today. That's about a third of all customers on the U.S. territory. NTD's David Lamb reports.
Hurricane Ernesto on Thursday barreled toward Bermuda, where it promised to produce dangerous storm surge and heavy rains after around 470,000 Puerto Rico homes and businesses were without power in its wake. The Federal Aviation Administration says Ernesto is affecting flights and could cause delays in Minneapolis, Chicago, Boston, and the central Gulf Coast. The Category 1 hurricane was 600 miles southwest of Bermuda as it crawled north, packing winds of 85 miles an hour on Thursday, according to the National Hurricane Center. Ernesto is to approach Bermuda on Saturday, where it could produce prolonged strong winds, flash flooding, and dangerous storm surge. The agency said there's high risks of dangerous rip currents along beaches on the U.S. East Coast. Ernesto became a hurricane on Wednesday and is the 5th named Atlantic storm of the hurricane season. Hurricane Beryl, the first of the season, was the earliest Category 5 storm on record in the Atlantic when it swept through the Caribbean and the Texas Gulf Coast last month. David Lamb, NTD News.
Ukraine now has a military commandant's office in occupied regions of Russia. The Kremlin is preparing to beef up border security to make up for these losses.
That's right. The situation in the Ukraine is really getting in Russia is really getting interesting. Here's the latest on Ukraine's offensive.
Ukraine's top commander on Thursday said that his troops had set up a military commandant's office in the occupied part of Russia's Kursk region. He says Ukrainian forces are still advancing and have taken another mile in the last 24 hours. The commander told President Vladimir Zelensky that Kyiv's forces had advanced over 20 miles into Russia since the incursion began last week. Russia's defense minister on Thursday said that commanders had prepared a series of actions to increase security in border regions.
We are talking, first of all, about increasing the efficiency of the troop command and control system in interaction with other law enforcement agencies and the administration of the Belgorod region.
Russia has now declared a federal-level state of emergency in Belgorod. Belgorod isn't far from Kursk, which itself has ordered the evacuation of thousands of residents. Russian state television recently aired this footage showing the aftermath of Ukraine's attack on Kursk. The video shows destroyed cars, military vehicles, and houses. And more firepower could be on the way for Ukrainian forces inside Russia. The UK government announcing on Thursday that donated British weapons can be used on Russian territory.
And moving now to the war in the Middle East, more updates coming in about the Israel-Hamas war. A new round of hostage and ceasefire talks has resumed in Doha, Qatar. They are expected to continue through tomorrow.
Both sides need to show compromise. Both sides need to show some leadership here. We are now talking about the implementing details of the deal itself, the smaller gaps that we absolutely believe can be narrowed in terms of how the deal is executed. It's not about a debate in Doha today about the deal itself, the structure of it. It's now about implementing.
Israeli officials, as well as mediators from the U.S., Egypt, and Qatar, are present for the talks. The Hamas terrorist group has said they are staying out of the talks, but they said their members in Qatar are willing to discuss any proposals from the mediators following the talks. The White House has hoped that a ceasefire deal would help avert a wider conflict in the Middle East. President Biden has suggested that Iran might hold off its planned attack on Israel, if a ceasefire deal is reached, that is. The White House says it's working feverishly to get this ceasefire deal in place. Next, mediators have spent months trying to negotiate a three-phase agreement in which the terror group Hamas would release hostages in exchange for a lasting ceasefire, the withdrawal of Israeli forces, and the release of Palestinian prisoners. A State Department spokesperson said this about the latest talks.
The fastest way to create improved conditions for all, including the Palestinian people, including Palestinian civilians, is for the parties to accept and finalize this deal for an immediate ceasefire, hostages released, and increased humanitarian aid and safe civilian return. And we really hope that with the process that restarted today, that is what is awaiting for us at the other side of the finish line. Talks are moving forward in Doha. That process is happening. And there are representatives on the ground there from Israel, from the United States, from Qatar and Egypt, and Qatar and Egypt are, as part of that process, are mediating with Hamas. There's broad agreement on the contours of what President Biden laid out at the end of May. What we are talking about now is some specific details, some specific implementing factors. There are, of course, still gaps and things that need to be bridged in that space, but when we're talking about the overall framework, that has been generally accepted, and that continues to be the case.
When we come back, President Biden speaks in Maryland, revealing a Medicare accomplishment he says is the first of its kind.
Say goodbye to harsh, bitter coffee and hello to a delicious, smooth brew. With specialty quality beans, expertly roasted in-house, you'll taste the difference with every sip. Fermented with a blend of 50 enzymes, Days Coffee delivers a rich brew like no other. Made with the highest grade specialty beans available, you're sure to taste the difference. Elevate your morning with Days Enzyme Fermented Coffee.
Do you ever wake up and realize your life has no purpose?
Do I have a death wish? Morgan asked. Maybe I did. I thought this would be our final run ever. We had made millions and millions of dollars, but God had other plans.
Peter Lowe, the one-time drug dealer turned pastor, along with 2 others, will be executed at 12 midnight local time.
The next day, something strange happened. Someone came up to me and gave me this flyer about Jesus.
You can be in heaven, or you can be in hell. The choice is yours.
We'll walk straight out of here. Pretend to be the media.
This pathetic maggot got caught trying to escape my prison. Nobody escapes my prison.
He's a changed person. He's a new man.
I found Christ in here, and he forgave me.
I found Christ too.
My name is Peter Lone, and I will be executed in 2 hours. Why am I being executed, you ask?
Jesus is for free, and salvation is a gift. Do you believe in Jesus?
My graduation was something I will never forget. People like you and me sometimes may have doubts in ourselves, but I feel that everything's possible.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Welcome back to Newsroom. If you've been watching us, you saw President Biden and Vice President Harris speak in Maryland about a new agreement to reduce prescription drug costs. NTD's Jason Blair is there now. Jason, talk to us about this. What's the latest?
Yes, so reducing prescription drug costs was the big topic today. Joe Biden announced a new agreement that Medicare has with drug manufacturers, lowering the cost of 10 prescription drugs starting in 2026, with more to follow. And we have a clip from his talk earlier today. Have a look.
Too many Americans can't afford the drugs they badly need for life and death. So they skip doses, cut pills in half, forego prescriptions entirely, because the prescription drugs are totally unaffordable.
And Jason, what did you learn being there? I mean, you were at that event today. What was the sense in the crowd?
Yes, a lot of people were very excited about the news. It also was the first time Kamala Harris and Joe Biden appeared at an event together since Joe Biden announced he was not going to seek re-election. So it could very well be the beginning of Biden more heavily promoting Harris as a candidate. It definitely was touted tonight how Harris was the tie-breaking vote for the Inflation Reduction Act, which Biden did credit for being able to make the Medicare agreement that he announced today. Back to you.
You know, Jason, one of the things about these prescription drug price increases is that they're negotiated by the federal government. I know Republicans have opposed legislation that affords this power to the federal government. Can you talk about what critics have said about all this?
Well, the announcement really just came out this morning. Not too many people have reacted to it. This is really, probably came along with the price index. So it is coming into the election season, I imagine it was, promoting Harris coming in for helping getting this made. But so far, I have not seen any critics come out with this news, against this news yet.
And what other policy decisions are we expecting from the Harris campaign and going forward?
Well, Harris is going to be in North Carolina tomorrow, talking about, she's expected to lay out her economic policy and talk more in detail about that, since she has not really laid out too many details about that. So I do plan to be there tomorrow, and we'll probably have more to report on the specifics that Harris will likely be putting forward in the future and promoting in her election campaign.
Jason, one of the things about this election is that Kamala Harris hasn't done any off-script interviews with reporters. Obviously, we haven't heard from her at any debates yet. I'm just always thinking about when she actually gets off script with a reporter, with a press gaggle maybe, or at one of these debates. Is that some kind of critical moment in this election where things could, I don't know, like the enthusiasm around her is in jeopardy? I want to get your read on that.
Well, I know she did do a short gaggle in Arizona. She spoke briefly with reporters, and she did specifically say she plans on doing an interview with the press sometime by the end of the month. I don't think any specifics have been announced on that. And then, of course, she did confirm the debate coming up with Trump in September. But other than that, there hasn't been too much noise that I've heard about her doing any unscripted interviews. But we'll have to wait and see.
All right, Jason Blair, good to see you. Thank you so much for your time.
Staying on election news, Democratic vice presidential nominee Tim Walz has agreed to debate his opponent, Republican JD Vance, on October 1st. That's one of 4 dates proposed by CBS News.
And Vance today agreeing to 2 debates against Tim Walz. He wrote on X that not only do I accept the CBS debate on October 1st, I accept the CNN debate on September 18th as well. At a campaign event today, Vance said he first heard about debates yesterday.
We just wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to do a real exchange of views. That was my only directive, and I told my staff, agree to whatever we have to agree to, because I think it's important, again, that you stand before the American people and actually ask for their vote, not just pretend it's going to be given to you.
Former President Donald Trump is making some changes to his 2024 campaign team, and they include the return of his 2016 campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski. Chris Lasavita and Susie Wiles will continue to manage the campaign. They say Lewandowski is brought on to help navigate the changed political landscape, along with a number of other previous Trump campaign veterans. Lewandowski was Trump's campaign manager for a year during the 2016 election season. He left his position after a series of controversial stories and was replaced with Paul Manafort.
An update on former President Trump's New York criminal case. His attorneys are asking the judge to postpone sentencing until after the presidential election in November. Trump was convicted in May of 34 felony counts of falsifying business records. He's currently scheduled to be sentenced on September 18th. In a letter made public today, Trump's lawyer suggested that sentencing Trump as scheduled would amount to election interference. The lawyer wrote that a delay would also allow Trump time to weigh his next steps, such as an appeal.
Next, developed nations face falling birth rates. A demographer warns this is creating major problems, and if it's not fixed, will impact every part of society. But he does have a solution. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson brings us more on this.
A falling birth rate and an aging population are combining to form a major challenge for modern societies, one that demographer and author Paul Morland says he believes is unprecedented in history.
If we continue to have too few children to replace ourselves, then the population will continue to fall. But we've just passed the point in the UK, slightly earlier than was expected, where deaths are outstripping births.
For a nation to maintain a stable population level, women in developed countries should have an average of just over 2 children. That replaces the 2 parents and covers any unnatural deaths. In England and Wales, official figures show the birth rate or fertility rate fell to just under 1.5 births per woman in 2022. In the United States, it fell to 1.62 births per woman in 2023. Morland said most developed countries are in a similar situation. This creates a major problem that impacts the whole of society.
So if we don't have enough young people of working age and too many people relatively who need pensions and healthcare, then we will have labour shortages. We will also have government deficits. Government will struggle.
He said that with a declining tax base, governments will struggle to fund pensions and medical cover for older people. and added there will be no choice but to cut social services if we don't fix the demographic decline. Mass immigration is one potential solution, but Moreland said he doesn't think it's practical or even moral.
We can't, as a world, have fewer and fewer children and be importing them from somewhere else. We shouldn't be hoovering up highly qualified doctors from countries like Ghana, where they have much lower levels of healthcare than we have. So that's a very selfish thing to be doing.
The other solution is for people to have more babies, but that also comes with its own challenge.
It is very difficult to raise the fertility rate, but I think that's the only way to do it. And the answer there is a cultural change. It's a change in what people want.
He said governments can play a role through pro-family incentives, but ultimately the change has to come from people themselves. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News, London.
Also today, China's Commerce Ministry announced that it will restrict exports of antimony, related elements, and extraction technologies. The new rule will take effect in 1 month on September 15th. Antimony is a critical material used in making products ranging from batteries to nuclear weapons. Now, anyone who wants to sell antimony outside of China will need to apply for a license. China said that the restriction aims to protect its national security and opposes any country using this mineral in ways that undermine China's security and development interests. China exports nearly half of the global needs of antimony, making it the world's top supplier. Antimony is a strategic metal used for defense purposes, including in nuclear weapons and infrared missiles. The mineral can also be used in producing alloys and making batteries.
Next, China's economic performances over the past few months disappoint Beijing. Multiple supportive policies failed to revive the sluggish economy. China's new home prices fell at the fastest pace in 9 years since last month, marking the 13th straight month of decline. That's despite a basket of supportive policies from Beijing aimed at boosting the market. And China's official data shows that factory output last month declined compared to June, reflecting languid domestic demand. But the factory output did increase compared to the same period last year.
A large protest erupting in eastern China. It all started with a standoff between hundreds of delivery riders and armed police. Here's what happened.
On Monday, hundreds of food delivery drivers in China's eastern Hangzhou city demanded an apology from the security staff of a building compound. A large number of police officers arrived at the scene to clear the area. This sparked a confrontation between the police and delivery drivers, further escalating tensions. But what led the workers to protest in the first place? Various reports provide different takes on what happened. But the consensus is that a delivery rider knelt before a private security guard after an altercation and may have been threatened with a fine. The official police report says the rider broke railings in the community while making a delivery, leading to the dispute with the security guard. Worried about delaying his other orders, the rider allegedly knelt down to apologize. But Chinese social media posts tell a slightly different story, saying the security guard took the key to the rider's electric bike and demanded $27 in compensation after the rider accidentally knocked over a railing. The posts add that the rider was directed to kneel before the guard would return the key.
This incident in Hangzhou City highlights a case of grassroots conflict. The security guards in these communities are part of the Chinese Communist Party's local management system. Their arrogance toward residents and outside people is supported by the CCP's authoritarianism.
Wu said that even if the delivery rider did damage the railing, the security guards had no right to humiliate him. Moreover, he called it a misstep for local police to support the security guards during the protest. Driven by the high unemployment rate, Chinese media reported that 60,000 graduate students took up delivery work in 2022. These educated young people often face mistreatment on the job.
Delivery workers have long been dealing with a lot of frustration and discrimination. They face ongoing challenges and mistreatment that have pushed them to their limits. The recent incident, where a security guard demanded that a delivery worker kneel, was the last straw and set off their anger.
Chinese media reported that after the protest, the company who employs the rider who knelt paid to repair the damaged railing, and that all delivery services in the area were halted.
South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol is offering to establish a working-level consultative body with North Korea. The channel would help the two countries discuss ways to ease tensions and resume economic cooperation on the peninsula.
Today, I propose that authorities from both Koreas establish Inter-Korean Working Group. This body could take up any issue ranging from relieving tensions to economic cooperation, people-to-people and cultural exchanges, and disaster and climate change responses. We will also be able to discuss pending humanitarian issues, such as separated families and South Korean prisoners of war, abductees, and detainees still kept in the north.
Yoon's proposal came on the 79th anniversary of independence from Japan's 1910 through 1945 colonial rule after World War II. The president said he was ready to begin political and economic cooperation if North Korea takes just one step towards denuclearization. However, a unified Korea appears a distant prospect to most people on both sides of the border. At the beginning of the year, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un called South Korea a primary foe and said unification was no longer possible.
Staying in Asia, Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida pledged today that his country would never again engage in warfare. It's a promise echoed by Japan's Emperor Naruhito. The two men spoke at an annual ceremony marking the anniversary of Japan's surrender back in 1945. That's what brought about the end of the Second World War. Japan's Prime Minister vowed to step up his country's effort to defend a rules-based international order in a peace pledge.
We must never again repeat the devastation of war. Although 79 years have now passed, no matter how time flows, we will remain committed to this resolute pledge. Japan will do its utmost to resolve the various challenges facing the world as it works to maintain and strengthen the free and open international order based on the rule of law while placing human dignity at the very center.
Kishida noted that more than 3 million Japanese who were killed, along with the destruction and loss of life from bloody ground battles on Japan's southern island of Okinawa. He also mentioned the fire bombings across Japan and the atomic attacks on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Members of Kishida's cabinet, including the defense minister, visited Tokyo's Yasukuni Shrine today. The shrine is controversial as it honors Japan's war dead. These include 14 World War II leaders convicted by an Allied tribunal as Class A war criminals, making it a flashpoint for regional tensions. Coming up, today is the first day of the 23rd Flower Carpet Event edition on the historic square in Brussels, Belgium. We'll tell you what you can expect to see.
And something unexpected was found inside a claw machine in Pennsylvania. Find out more about the unusual rescue. That and more after this break.
Shenyun Creations, the streaming platform from Shenyun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
The Kindness is Cool Video Awards are back for their second year. Record and nominate acts of kindness, both big and small, from individuals, families, and communities. Submit your videos on ganjingworld.com with the hashtag KindnessIsCool. Win a $10,000 grand prize and be featured on a New York Times Square billboard. Visit ganjingworld.com and start sharing today. Kindness is cool.
If you're watching this, I didn't make it.
Thanks to people like you
and the American Heart Association, my family never had to see this video. I was a healthy 47-year-old, no symptoms. But then my doctor discovered I had a bad heart valve that was beyond repair. The scariest day of my life was when I was sitting on a gurney as I looked and my wife was at my side and my kids had me surrounded. Deep down, you know, this could be it. This could be all there is.
Not having him around for Riley to grow up with and have that papa figure in his life, that would have been hard.
This little heart valve did something really big. It saved my life. I wouldn't be here today without it. The research for this heart valve was funded by the American Heart Association. And that's why I'm asking you to become a monthly donor for just $19 a month. When you do, you'll help fund the next medical breakthrough that could save your life or the life of someone you love. You'll also provide life-saving CPR training and help certify hospitals to give the best care to those who have had a heart attack or stroke. When you give $19 a month, we'll send you a t-shirt just like this one. From the moment you put it on, you'll help raise awareness for heart disease and stroke. Since my surgery, I had a son get married. I had a daughter graduate high school. I had another daughter give birth to a precious boy. I would have missed all that. And that's why it's personal for me.
We're very thankful for everyone who is a donor because it gives us more time.
Every 40 seconds, someone has a heart attack. The next person you help save could be someone you love or even you. Become a monthly donor today by calling or going to helpheart.org because it's personal.
Welcome back. The first supermoon of the year is rising next week.
There's a quartet of supermoons this year. Stargazers can catch the first act on Monday.
This is what lucky stargazers should see next week if the conditions are right. A big, bright supermoon.
That's when a full moon inches a little closer than usual, making it appear slightly bigger and brighter in the night sky.
The next supermoon will be next month on the 17th. A partial lunar eclipse will also unfold that night. It should be visible across most of the U.S.
The other supermoons coming up this year will be in October and November. And a claw prize machine in Pennsylvania recently got a huge upgrade. Among the stuffed animals was a real live one. A groundhog managed to find its way into the machine, but then couldn't get out. The State Game Commission was called. The vending machine company came to open the machine, and a game warden got the critter out and released it. The business held an online naming contest for the groundhog. The winning name, Colonel Custard.
And Brussels' historic square was covered with a colorful carpet of almost 1 million flowers today. It's part of the 23rd Flower Carpet event. More than 100 volunteers spent around 6 hours creating this piece. It's 229 foot long and 78 feet wide. For the first time, the floral puzzle is made up of more than 80% fresh dahlias rather than the traditional begonias. These flowers are more resistant and are still being grown in Belgium. The carpet will be on display until Sunday, and the public can enjoy a panoramic view of the carpet of flowers from the balcony of the city's town hall. In less than an hour, former President Trump will hold a press conference at his golf club in New Jersey. It's expected he'll lay out his economic agenda before Vice President Kamala Harris is expected to announce hers on Friday. Joining us now live is NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao, who's in Bedminster, New Jersey. Good afternoon, Iris. Tell us, what are you expecting to hear today?
Good afternoon to both of you. So at around 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time this afternoon, former President Trump will be speaking and taking questions from all of us and during his press conference right here at his golf club here in Bedminster, New Jersey. And today's press conference will be centered on the economy. As you can see right behind me, they have put on the table different kind of groceries, including bread, milk, eggs, cereal, and also oranges, bananas, and different kinds of everyday groceries that people would get from the grocery store. And the theme will be to talk about inflation. Last last night during a speech in North Carolina on the economy, Trump used TikTok to give the example of how inflation has caused a difference in people's lives and what they're going to get with the same price. Meanwhile, today that will be a big theme as well. And just earlier this afternoon, I bumped into Trump on my way to the car and asked him how he's feeling. He told me he's feeling well and asked me how I was feeling, waved at me. So it seems like he is in a good mood. And this is the second press conference in a row he's held since last week. Last week at Mar-a-Lago, he held the press conference, talked to us for about over an hour and taking questions on the economy, on the border, and on different policy agendas that he's going to lay out. And today, the economy will be the focus. Meanwhile, another thing to watch for will be the debates. We know that Trump has proposed 3 different debates with Harris, and Harris's campaign today turned down the one late in September. Instead, she's accepting one in September, another vice presidential debate between JD Vance and Tim Walz, and also suggesting that they're open to one in October if Trump actually shows up to the one in September. So we do expect Trump to respond to that as well. Meanwhile, also we know that Vice President Kamala Harris will be laying out her economic agenda formally in this Friday in Raleigh, North Carolina. So we do expect the 2 candidates to individually lay out their economic vision for voters in November. Back to you.
Thank you, Iris Tao, for that great report. Look forward to hearing more. Coming up, the FTC ramping up its fight against fake reviews. It'll directly target perpetrators who violate its new rules. We'll have that story and more business news in our next hour.
Lord Heavenly Father, I pray to you today to guide us tomorrow. Give us strength as we face death. Help us not to be afraid.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, I have an important message about security. Write down the number on your screen so you can call when I finish. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. This is a lock for your life insurance, a rate lock that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. But be careful. Many policies you see do not have one. But you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. Call this number to learn more. This plan was designed with a rate lock for people on a fixed income who want life insurance that fits their budget and is simple to get. Coverage options start at $9.95 a month, less than 35 cents a day. Act now, and your rate will be locked in for life. It will never increase, guaranteed. This is lifelong coverage that can never be canceled as long as you pay your premiums, guaranteed. And your acceptance is guaranteed, with no health questions. You cannot be turned down because of your health. Call for your information kit and read about this rate lock for yourself. You'll also get a free beneficiary planner. Both are free with no obligation. Don't miss out. Call for information, then decide. Read about the 30-day 100% money-back guarantee. Don't wait. Call this number now.
Call now and you'll also get this free beneficiary planner. Use this valuable guide to record important information and your final wishes, and it's yours free just for calling. So don't wait. Call 1-800-357-4821 for your free information. That's 1-800-357-4821. There's no risk or obligation. That number again is 1-800-357-4821. That's 1-800-357-4821. 1-800-357-4821. Call now.
Do you know that Cars for Compassion is the best way to donate your car? Through this non-profit program, you can not only help us keep bringing the world independent and daringly truthful journalism, but also significantly impact the life of somebody who needs a vehicle. The Epoch Times fights misinformation and big tech censorship by being independent and unbound to advertisers. Every single contribution to Cars for Compassion is a powerful endorsement of our unwavering mission. All you have to do is go to carsforcompassion.org and let us know about your car, and we'll schedule a pickup time and email you a tax-deductible receipt. To do this, just click the link below, support truth, compassion, and hope. Donate your car right now at www.carsforcompassion.org.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G.
And I'm Chris Beers.
U.S. retail sales unexpectedly surged in July.
And the FTC ramping up its fight against fake reviews. It will directly target perpetrators who violate its new rules.
How hard could it be to find electric vehicle battery fire information? It might be harder than you think. We tried to find out more.
Kamala Harris wants to call for a federal law banning corporations from setting excessive prices. We have analysis on her economic policies.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
The American Heart Association says nearly half of adults in the U.S. have high blood pressure, but many don't even know it.
That's right. Experts say you can help prevent high blood pressure by eating a healthy diet and exercising.
Well, now that we know we have to keep our blood sugar balanced, the question is, how do we curb those sugar cravings?
They're found in regular sodas, candy, breakfast cereals, but consuming too many added sugars isn't good for your health.
There's a reason why we consume it. We feel calm, we feel good, we feel energized. But once our blood sugar drops, we need more sugar to get us back to where we were.
The American Heart Association recommends limiting added sugars to no more than 6% of daily calories. But since added sugar is in a lot of food, many may not even know how much they're consuming, says registered dietitian Kristen Kirkpatrick with Cleveland Clinic.
So we're still training our taste buds that the sugar is there, it's satisfying us, even though we may not be intending to have actual sugar throughout the day.
To curb sugar cravings, Kirkpatrick says to start the day with protein. It can fill you up, making snacking the rest of the day less likely. Next, look for ways to cut sugar. She says the easiest place to start is with what you drink.
Sugary sodas, juices, they make up a huge proportion of where we're getting that added sugar content.
Get good quality sleep. Kirkpatrick says we're more likely to have comfort food cravings when we're tired. And stay hydrated. Not drinking enough water can make you feel hungry even when you're not. Finally, remember, cutting back isn't easy.
We need to give ourselves a break and recognize that sugar is probably the hardest behavior change to make. You're probably going to fall off the wagon. But the key here is to get back up.
T-Mobile will pay a $60 million settlement over alleged data breach violations. That's the largest ever fine by the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States. According to multiple outlets, T-Mobile failed to disclose and take action against data leaks that occurred after its $26 billion merger with Sprint in 2020 and therefore violated a national security agreement for the merger. A spokesperson for T-Mobile said the incident happened because of technical issues during its post-merger integration and said the breach did not impact customer information.
For today's Business Matters, we have Don Ma here with us. Don, it's good to see you as always. What's happening today?
All right, Chris, Fiona, good to see you guys. Of course, as always, yeah, some important stuff happening today. And let me just get started on that right away. Starting off, U.S. lawmakers are urging a probe of Wi-Fi router maker TP-Link. And this is over fears of Chinese cyber attacks. Now, one Republican and Democratic representative are asking reportedly the Commerce Department to investigate the lawmakers noting vulnerabilities in TP-Link firmware and instances of its routers being exploited to target government officials in European countries. TP-Link was founded in China in 1996. The lawmakers' letter is a sign of mounting concerns that Beijing could exploit Chinese origin routers and other equipment in cyber attacks on American governments and businesses. But besides that, the average rate on a 30-year mortgage is holding close to its lowest level in more than a year. It's currently at 6.49%, and the rate on a 30-year mortgage is influenced by several factors, including by the rate on U.S. Treasuries. Now, home shoppers and homeowners are eager to refinance and have been encouraged as mortgage rates have eased back to their 14-month lows. Most economists expect that the average rate on a 30-year home loan to to remain above 6% this year. And if rates ease further and the supply of homes on the market keeps rising, that could set the stage for improved sales in the coming months. And more good news for the U.S. economy. Initial jobless claims fell last week. This is for the second week in a row. The Labor Department says that there were an estimated 227,000 new claims for unemployment insurance. That's 7,000 less than the previous week. Now, jobless claims are a key indicator of layoff activity in the labor market. So despite trending higher in recent months, they remain below historical averages. And in the decade before the COVID pandemic, weekly jobless claims averaged 311,000. Okay, more economic data. U.S. retail sales unexpectedly surged in July, rising by a solid 1% from June. And that number exceeded economists' expectations, which were sitting at a 0.3% gain. Now, the Commerce Department released a figure earlier today. Retail sales, which are adjusted for seasonal swings, but not for inflation, it makes up a sizable chunk of overall spending. And July's reading is a boon for the U.S. economy because the country's economic growth hinges on Americans spending their dollars. Sales jumped across most categories. That's including car dealerships, electronics, and grocery stores. Walmart today reporting a 4.2% increase in sales last quarter, while some retailers like Home Depot reported a drop in sales. The company's CEO said it's due to higher interest rates and economic uncertainty. Now, if you're considering buying a home, another report out today could help you decide. It gives the latest information on mortgage rates, and the update follows yesterday's good news about an inflation milestone. That's from a report that touches on home prices. The new numbers have many analysts sounding hopeful about housing. Take a look at this.
We're moving in the right direction on inflation and doing so with some momentum.
Today's report on mortgage rates offers new insight for prospective home buyers, especially when paired with yesterday's good news about inflation.
You get mortgage rates being so high because inflation rose and the Fed had to raise interest rates.
Now inflation is cooling. Yesterday's CPI report shows less than 3% growth for the first time since March of 2021. Analysts say that means the Federal Reserve is likely to reduce interest rates at its next meeting. Such cuts often lower mortgage rates, and even expectations of them can have an effect.
Know that borrowing rates are going to come down 6 months from now, a year from now.
Of course, mortgage rates are different than housing prices, and those have been stubbornly high. The CPI report shows they rose 0.4% from June to July and more than 5% over a year. Still, analysts say home buying and renting costs can lag behind other inflation improvements. Many see good news for home buyers down the line.
That house that you may have had your eye on is probably going to become a little more affordable.
The inflation crisis is now behind us.
And the FTC is ramping up its fight against fake online reviews. It will now directly enforce a ban against anyone who breaks its rules. Here's the story.
The FTC has announced final rules on fake reviews as it ramps up efforts to stop them. The rules prohibit buying reviews, insider reviews, reviewer suppression, and buying fake social media followers.
It's great because there's so many people that were playing games.
Phil Masiello teaches people how to grow online businesses. He says fake negative reviews have been a problem for his clients.
We get redirected from growing businesses to having to combat all this negative stuff and get it taken off, spending time communicating with Google, spending time communicating with Amazon, taking screenshots and doing all that. I mean, it's weeks and weeks and weeks worth of work.
FTC Chair Lena Khan says that fake reviews not only waste people's time and money, they divert business away from honest competitors. Her new rules allow the FTC to directly seek civil penalties against violators. In the past, it would have gone through the Justice Department. Perpetrators will be fined for every fake review, which means the fines could really stack up. Online review sites praised the news.
I'm very much glad and happy that FTC finally made the ruling to ban fake reviews.
Podolsky runs a website where consumers can comment on businesses. He expects fewer fake reviews on his site after this news.
We, as a company, have built instruments to try to weed them out electronically, as well as through human moderation. We do everything possible in our power to remove that fake component.
Podolsky says he's glad the government is also stepping in to fight the fake reviews. He's worked with the FTC in the past, giving them data such as names, emails, and numbers when it was investigating fake reviews. And he's happy to help the commission going forward.
And Vice President Kamala Harris is expected to call for a federal ban on price gouging in an effort to lower grocery prices. The Democratic presidential nominee is expected to unveil the details in her first economic policy speech in Raleigh, North Carolina tomorrow. The proposal is part of Harris's effort to prevent corporations in the food and grocery industries from hiking up prices. The Harris campaign says Friday's speech is a small part of a larger plan she will roll out to tackle high costs and inflation. Harris is also expected to draw a contrast between her and former President Donald Trump's economic agenda. And now joining us to discuss the expected plan is Vice Ginn. He's the former Office of Management and Budget Chief Economist and President of Ginn Economic Consulting. Vance, how are you doing today?
Hey, Don, how's it going?
I'm doing good, Vance. Let me ask you this. Price caps will be a new approach for the American government. Are there any examples of where they've been used elsewhere? Can you tell us that?
No, I mean, this is really a terrible idea to put price caps in place, whether it's a price ceiling or a price floor. What that does is it distorts the marketplace. And when you look at food and groceries, something that's so important for American households across the economy, this is something that we don't need shortages in or rationing or other things. We really need to allow for the pricing mechanism to work. Oftentimes what is talked about from Kamala Harris and others is what's called price gouging. But I think that's more of a political term, not an economic term, because really what comes in the marketplace is where consumers want to buy something at a certain price and producers want to provide it at a certain price. That's what we want to look at. And instead, we should be looking at deregulating, finding ways to get government out of the way instead of putting more government in place like price controls, which haven't worked throughout history.
But let me ask you, in your opinion, do you feel like there's any corporations out there who may have raised prices needlessly?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why they raise prices for food and groceries and other things, and some will call it greedflation, if you will, right? But I think that's a misnomer. What you really see is that we have general level of prices and inflation that's going up, that's driven by Congress's excessive government spending and the increases in the Federal Reserve's balance sheet, putting too much money, chasing too few goods. You get rapid inflation, and that's what we're seeing also with food and grocery prices in general. And so instead of trying to put in these large draconian policies by government, we should be finding ways to get government out of the way, because if not, we're going to end up with worse problems in the process.
Okay, let me point this out. California recently put a price cap on insurance premiums, and later many insurance providers left the state. I wonder if there's something to learn from this.
Yeah, I think that there are lessons to be learned when you think about price caps and how this can distort the marketplace from whenever we had the price caps back in the 1970s, even in the 1980s, especially the 1970s. Nixon's price and wage controls really put a lot of rationing when it came to gas prices and everything else. And now if we're trying to redo this, that would not be a good situation. Price controls, Don, are really what they do more in Soviet Russia or in Venezuela or even in China. There's a lot of price caps. That's not what we need in America. We need to allow for the market process to work to bring about the best prices, because if not, I'm worried that we'll end up with less food, more shortages in the process, and that will be worse for Americans than just a little bit of higher prices. And the other thing here, though, is that if the vice president Kamala Harris thinks that the government should have done something more, why haven't they done anything over the last 4 years? She's already been in office this time. Why would a policy of price controls be something they'd want to do now and think that that would solve the problem somehow? I think this is really a step in the wrong direction, and it's something that should not be done by the federal government, whether it be Kamala Harris or anyone else.
So what should the Vice President Kamala Harris do in terms of wanting to lower grocery prices and other prices? What does she need to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think things that should be looked at instead are reducing government spending so that way we're not running massive deficits that's contributing to the inflationary problems in general. Also looking at finding ways to remove subsidies and tax breaks for a lot of the farming industry and others that are out there, but also look at the rules and regulations that are put in place by the FDA, by OSHA, and other sort of federal regulations that raise the price for food and groceries when we go to the store. If we look at some more of those things, I think that would help to remove the barriers that are keeping prices higher than otherwise, and would be better off for consumers and producers in the marketplace.
All right, Vance, that's all the time we have for you today. I appreciate you joining us. Always a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Cisco Systems said yesterday there was a rebound in demand for its networking equipment, and at the same time, the company announced a 7% cut in its global workforce to focus on high growth areas such as AI and cybersecurity. The move is on top of more than 4,000 job cuts earlier by Cisco this year, when it also lowered its annual revenue target. Cisco estimates that it will face pre-tax charges of up to $1 billion in connection with the latest plan. Still, the company's shares were up 5% in extended trading after it forecast better than expected first quarter revenue on Wednesday. And EV fires have sparked concern in South Korea after several high-profile fires. The Korean government now wants to know who is making the batteries for the nation's electric vehicles. We don't have access to this type of information in the United States. NTD Sean Marshall has more on that.
Given the risk of fire, should EV manufacturers be forced to disclose the factories that make their car batteries? In South Korea, the government is now asking car makers to voluntarily disclose that information to lower consumer fears. An EV caught fire not long ago in a major city, ripping through a parking lot and damaging hundreds of cars.
I guess in Korea, it's actually, it's a term that I've heard 3 times now while I was doing research. EV phobia.
EV phobia, fear of electric vehicles. The South Korean government is seeking to dispel such phobia recently.
And now we have 2 back-to-back fires in South Korea happening both in parking garages with 2 EVs from 2 different companies that were parked, not plugged in, and thermal runaway, which is just when the temperature gets so high in the batteries, even just passively, they're always activated.
The head of Mercedes-Benz on Wednesday in South Korea met with residents of the apartment complex where the fire took place. It's not easy to find the statistics on the causes of EV-related fires. From 2010 to 2024, 51% of fire-related incidents have an unknown cause, primarily because it was not investigated according to EV FireSafe. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration collects data on fatal traffic crashes, but cannot identify whether a fire was due to an electric vehicle battery.
Do certain laws need to be passed? And fire departments even recommend that people don't park their cars in their garage at home. And people are parking them in parking garages, which kind of leaves them available for really big potential insurance claims. And even the manufacturers are on the hook too. You know, how do they handle that?
The National Center for Statistics and Analysis did not respond back with EV battery fire information in time for broadcast. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
And before I go, quick mention on markets all green down on Wall Street today. The Nasdaq posting its 6th straight day of gains. It's up 0.2%, and the S&P 500 up 1.6%. The Dow Jones up over 500 points, which is 1.4%. Ulta Beauty rising over 11% after it was revealed that Warren Buffett has taken a stake in the company. And with that, that's all the stories that I have for you guys today. Chris, Fiona, back to you guys.
Don, it's always good to have you. Before you go, we talked about Kamala Harris's approach to rising prices, putting these price caps in place potentially. Donald Trump, on the other hand, has talked about increasing domestic oil production to address prices and all kinds of other things. I mean, he's talking about opening an oil reserve in Alaska.
Yeah, Harris's campaign has talked about companies raising prices on items needlessly. So earlier today, I talked to a finance professor who said that if that were the case, then why can't companies just raise prices anytime they want, right? Why are we seeing this now and not at an earlier time, like 2019 or another date?
Right, it's interesting. A lot of questions, and it'll be curious to see what she actually does propose in terms of policy there.
Yep, and I'm sure we'll cover it.
Cool. Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Next, we have more news after the break here. Chinese movie on rarely exposed social issues.
As we naturally age, many people are getting zero amount of this incredible and unique substance. That's when we start seeing an impact in our joints, skin, nails, and even our digestion.
People ask me, Dr. X, what is the #1 supplement I should be taking? My answer is multi-collagen protein.
People's reactions to me, people were like, what are you doing? What is going on? You look amazing. You have a glow about you.
What makes Ancient Nutrition Multi-Collagen stand out from other brands? 10 types of collagen. It's grass-fed, pasture-raised with vitamin C and probiotics. It's proven to reduce joint discomfort rapidly, continuously, and persistently. It improves the appearance of crow's feet after 4 weeks and improves skin tone after 8 weeks. And it promotes hair thickness, growth, and a reduction in hair breakage.
It has transformed everything from my hair. Like, my hair was starting to kind of just, come out, and I don't have that anymore. My skin feels amazing.
Call the number on your screen and find out how to get a free bottle when you order, plus free shipping and our 30-day money-back guarantee. And as a bonus, we will include Dr. Josh Axe and Jordan Rubin's revolutionary book, Multi-Collagen Makeover, free with your order, plus free shipping and free returns.
I have implicit trust in Dr. Axe because the plan worked. I'm living proof of it.
This is the collagen protein that is backed by clinical studies. It's what my family uses, it's what I use, and I know you're gonna benefit in a big way as well.
Love the results or get your money back. This special TV offer is not available in stores. Call the number on your screen or go online now.
Imagine a coffee that cares for your health. Expertly fermented with a 50 enzyme complex to enhance flavor and remove bitterness. Small batch roasted to a decadent medium dark, resulting in a brew that is gentle on digestion, low acid, and up to 90% less caffeine than regular coffee. Try America's first enzyme fermented coffee today.
Thanks for staying with us. A new movie in China tells the story of a middle-aged programmer who is laid off. The movie Upstream addresses the social issue not often highlighted by recent films in China. Here's that story.
China's latest blockbuster, Upstream, is casting a rare and harsh light on the country's biggest economic pain points: an uncertain job market, downward mobility, and the hardscrabble life of millions who are working gig jobs. The film hit home with moviegoers in Beijing. Some cried while watching it.
In fact, this film very much reflects what's happening at the moment, including the general atmosphere and the employment situation.
It resonates a lot. I think the director made the film really realistic.
Directed by and starring Zhu Cheng, the film showcases the low-paid scooter drivers working for China's on-demand food platforms, led by Meituan. It shows them racing to avoid late delivery penalties and keep up with robotic orders from an app piped through their mobile phones. The movie lands at a time when uncertainty in a deflationary economy and real-life pressures on delivery drivers have both been trending concerns, and stands apart from the typical genres of Chinese blockbusters over the years, usually war films, historical dramas or romances. Some praised Upstream for addressing a social issue not often highlighted by recent films, subject to censorship. Others were unimpressed by the happy ending, with the protagonist successfully making enough deliveries to cover overdue mortgage payments. In China, at least 10 million delivery drivers work for Meituan and its largest rival, Alibaba-owned Ele.me. Drivers have complained of long hours and payment per delivery that is often less than the equivalent of $1. This 37-year-old food delivery driver in Shanghai told Reuters he would leave the industry if there were an alternative.
It's not an industry for a normal person. Imagine at peak hour in the middle of the day. Many orders are made. There is no way other than to race against time. Sometimes at the last minute or 2 minutes before the order deadline goes overtime, you are racing with your life. It is not easy.
In the movie Upstream, competition between the drivers and platforms is depicted as unrelenting. It shows drivers not having time for breaks and sometimes taking dangerous shortcuts in a 14-hour workday for incentives. Ashley Duda-Rennock has written books on Chinese business and consumer trends.
It is a rather realistic depiction of the psyche of many Chinese people today. Previously, if we remember 5 years ago, 10 years ago, what set China very strongly apart was this very positive mindset of the consumer, of an average business person, because there was this strong underlying belief that tomorrow is going to be better than today. The economy is going to be better. Opportunities are going to be better. Technology is going to, drive us forward. I'm going to be, and my skills and my future is going to be better. Today, that belief is not there.
A Meituan spokesman said the company was not involved in the movie and offered no comment on its depiction of the industry when asked by Reuters. A film subsidiary of Alibaba is listed among the 17 production companies behind Upstream. The company did not immediately comment.
Moving to Europe, in France, people are celebrating August 15th, which is one of the most important traditional holidays in the country.
That's right. This tradition dates back to the miraculous birth of one of France's most famous kings, Louis XIV. NTD's international correspondent David Vivez has the story.
August 15th has long been a national holiday in France. The day marks the Assumption of the Virgin Mary. In France, this day is celebrated with religious parades and events in churches.
Today we have many processions in France, all over France. It's kind of renewal, but there are many processions. And today in Paris, we will make a procession also going through the center of Paris.
The origins of this celebration trace back to what was considered a miracle in France's history. In the 17th century, King Louis XIII and his Queen Anne of Austria were unable to have a son for 22 years. The king then made a special vow to the Virgin Mary.
The demand of the king to the Virgin Mary, to our intercession, was to get a son, because, as you know, by a kingdom, a king needs a son. And this was not coming. So that's why he made this special vow. He dedicated all his kingdom to the Virgin Mary.
The king commanded the kingdom to participate in a series of processions and prayers. Exactly 9 months after the processions ended, the queen gave birth to a son, who later became Louis XIV, the most famous king of France. That was when the old king swore an oath to dedicate the French kingdom to the Virgin Mary and to make August 15th a special day.
These different vows are intricated the history of France with the faith. What would be sent by God, we don't know, but we can just hope that more and more we can be near to heaven.
King Louis XIV, known as the Sun King, ruled over France for over 72 years. He is remembered as a warrior who fought to restore peace and a patron of the arts. David Vivez, NTD News, Paris.
In Japan, the Prime Minister, Fumio Kishida, pledged today that his country would never again engage in warfare. It's a promise echoed by Japan's Emperor Naruhito. The two men spoke at an annual ceremony marking the anniversary of Japan's surrender back in 1945, which brought about the end of the Second World War. Japan's prime minister vowed to step up his country's efforts to defend a rules-based international order in a peace pledge.
We must never again repeat the devastation of war. Although 79 years have now passed, no matter how time flows, we will remain committed to this resolute pledge. Japan will do its utmost to resolve the various challenges facing the world as it works to maintain and strengthen the free and open international order based on the rule of law while placing human dignity at the very center.
Kishida noted the more than 3 million Japanese who were killed, along with the destruction and loss of life from bloody ground battles on Japan's southern island of Okinawa. He also mentioned the fire bombings across Japan and the atomic attacks on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Members of Kishida's cabinet, including the defense minister, visited Tokyo's Yasukuni Shrine today. The shrine is controversial as it honors Japan's war dead. These include 14 World War II leaders convicted by an allied tribunal as a Class A war criminals, making it a flashpoint for regional tensions. In Brussels, the historic square was covered with a colorful carpet of almost 1 million flowers today. It's part of the 23rd ever flower carpet event. More than 100 volunteers spent around 6 hours creating the piece. It's 229 feet long and 78 feet wide. For the first time, the floral puzzle was made up of more than 80% fresh dahlias rather than the traditional begonias. These flowers are more resistant and are still being grown in Belgium. The carpet will be on display until Sunday, and the public can enjoy a panoramic view of the carpet of flowers from the balcony of the city's town hall. At the center of Stonehenge lies a hefty sandstone slab called the altar stone. Its origin and purpose have been among the mysteries of the famed monument. A new analysis reveals it took a remarkable journey to become part of one of humankind's ancient wonders. Here's more.
A new discovery concerning Britain's famous Stonehenge monument has stunned researchers. Its altar stone, weighing an estimated 6 tons, travelled roughly 435 to 465 miles in ancient times, from Scotland all the way to England's Salisbury Plain. New research, published in the journal Nature, was carried out by scientists at Aberystwyth University, UCL, Curtin University, and the University of Adelaide.
However you brought it, whether you brought it down by boat or whether you brought it over land, but it must have taken a huge effort to do that.
Nick Pearce is a geologist and co-author of the study.
And it sits right at the centre of the Stonehenge monument. It's the bit that you stand on to watch the sunrise between the other stones over there. So it's right at the middle. So it must have been placed there as an important stone.
The origin and purpose of the altar stone have been among the mysteries of the megalithic monument. For the past century, the common belief had been that it had been sourced from Wales, like other large components at the UNESCO World Heritage Site. To find out the age of the stone, researchers studied its geochemical fingerprint.
It's a microanalysis technique. You fire a very focused laser beam on the minerals in the rock, and it vaporizes them. You analyze the vapor, and you analyze the uranium concentrations and the lead concentrations.
They found that the minerals of the altar stone are a perfect match for bedrock found in northeastern Scotland.
And you analyze 50 or 60 minerals, and you get this fingerprint of the different ages of those minerals in the rock, and that's the characteristic that tells us this is Orcadian based. It's that age, that suite of ages from those individual minerals in the grains in the altar stone.
No stone from any other monument dating back to that time period is known to have been transported so far. Researchers say this feat, perhaps by both land and sea, suggests a degree of societal organisation among Britain's Neolithic communities unexpected for the time when it was moved, thought to have been about 4,600 to 2,500 years ago. The precise location where the altar stone was sourced remains unknown. But researchers say the challenge of taking such a massive cargo such a long distance underscores its importance to Stonehenge's builders. The monument was built in multiple stages over 500 years or so, starting about 3000 BC. It remains a site of fascination and mystery over its exact purpose, drawing tourists from around the world.
Coming up, Hurricane Ernesto doing damage to Puerto Rico and heading towards Bermuda.
And the FAA says flights are affected and there are risks of dangerous rip currents on the U.S. East Coast.
Lord Heavenly Father, I pray to you today to guide us tomorrow. Give us strength as we face death. Help us not to be afraid.
There's cultures that have been lost, but this culture hasn't been. The artist is showing us our sense of who we are, where we came from. You look at his hat. His hat is knitted probably by a man because a man traditionally knitted the hats. That hat tells you the story of who this person is, what his place in the culture is, the animals around him. Everything's all contained in the messages in the hat. And the tool that he's carrying over his shoulder. This is a centuries-old tool that has been able to rework the mountains. Those traditions are invaluable, and if we don't honor those traditions, then we're rootless. The artist is showing us the value of maintaining our culture and respecting our culture.
The 7th NTD International Piano Competition will take place at the Kaufman Music Center in New York City. Pianists from around the world will come together to revive the great piano masterpieces. Join us on this uplifting journey. The semifinals, finals, and the winner's concert will be open to audiences and live streamed from October 17th to the 19th. Get tickets now at 212-501-3330.
I'm in the bedroom.
Okay.
Oh, shit. It's not here.
What?
The gun's not here.
What do you mean? Where is it?
Cameron, are you in there? Open the door. Cam, come on.
Welcome back to Newsroom. Hurricane Ernesto is expected to be near Bermuda on Saturday. This comes as hundreds of thousands of Puerto Ricans are still without power today. That's about a third of all customers on the U.S. territory. NTD's David Lamb reports.
Hurricane Ernesto on Thursday barreled toward Bermuda, where it promised to produce dangerous storm surge and heavy rains after around 470,000 Puerto Rico homes and businesses were without power in its wake. The Federal Aviation Administration says Ernesto is affecting flights and could cause delays in Minneapolis, Chicago, Boston, and the central Gulf Coast. The Category 1 hurricane was 600 miles southwest of Bermuda as it crawled north, packing winds of 85 miles an hour on Thursday, according to the National Hurricane Center. Ernesto is to approach Bermuda on Saturday, where it could produce prolonged strong winds, flash flooding, and dangerous storm surge. The agency said there's high risks of dangerous rip currents along beaches on the U.S. East Coast. Ernesto became a hurricane on Wednesday and is the 5th named Atlantic storm of the hurricane season. Hurricane Beryl, the first of the season, was the earliest Category 5 storm on record in the Atlantic when it swept through the Caribbean and the Texas Gulf Coast last month. David Lamb, NTD News.
The American Heart Association says nearly half of adults in the U.S. have high blood pressure, but many don't know they have it.
Yeah, you're right, Chris. Experts say you can help prevent this high blood pressure, though, by eating a healthy diet and exercising.
And we have Donald Trump on hold. He's speaking about economic policy. Let's tune into that.
People are coming into our country by the millions and millions and millions. We have no idea who they are or where they come from, but we're also a failing economy. Kamala Harris is a radical California liberal who broke the economy, broke the border, and broke the world, frankly. Very destructive to the entire world because as we go, oftentimes the world goes. She destroys everything she touches. And if she wins, your finances in your country will never recover. You're never going to recover. The radical left person wants to put price controls all over the place, which will end up driving up your prices, not down your prices. Declared that tackling inflation will be a day one priority for her. It's going to be day one. But day one, really, for Kamala was 3.5 years ago. Where has she been? And why hasn't she done it? Why hasn't she done it? I hear her complaining all the time. She was the border czar, but she didn't do anything. The worst border czar in history. There's never been a border czar so bad. She's been unbelievable in terms of her badness to some of our allies, some of our great allies. You know who I'm talking about. Here is the record of economic calamity that Kamala is desperate for voters to ignore. She cast the tie-breaking votes that caused record inflation. She cast the votes. She's trying to blame Biden, as you know. So it was Biden, but I'm going to do a better job. But it was her. And if she wants to do a better job, she's still got 5 months left, right? But she can't do a better job because she doesn't know how to. And she's of a place in life where she wouldn't know what a better job is. Going to destroy our country, and as a result of Kamala. $1,000. These are numbers coming from government. They're not coming from me. $28,000 she's cost a typical household. Kamala's inflation nightmare continues to cost the average American family $1,100 every single month. $1,100. Again, government numbers. You're paying $148 more a month on food. It's every month. Average family. Because Kamala and her ideas, and Joe Biden too, I mentioned him, but he's sort of gonzo. It all started with the debate. I should have been a little bit easier. Somebody said your debate performance was horrible. I said, why? Because you forced him out of government. But I believe she'll be just as bad. I believe she's maybe in many ways going to be worse because he wasn't really a radical left. But she is. She's real. He wasn't real. So I think she's going to be, in many ways, easier to beat than Joe Biden. What they did to him was disgraceful, by the way, and it really is a threat to democracy. It was a coup by people that wanted him out, and they didn't do not the way they're supposed to do it. $129 more on energy and $241 more. This is all per month on red. So you have that, 148, 129, 241, and then many other increases. You add it all up, it's thousands and thousands of dollars that she and he have cost people. The cost of a typical monthly mortgage has doubled since I left office, and that number was about 3 months old from government, and now it's tripled. We had mortgage rates at around 2%, close to 2%, and they're now at 10%, and you can't get a mortgage. So that means it's a lot higher than 10%. I guess it is whatever they want to give over the money, and that's a lot more than 10%. So So when you think about double, they've actually quadrupled or more than that. Think of that, quadrupled, which really kills the American dream for young people. Young people are being devastated by what they've done to our country. Grocery prices have skyrocketed. Cereals are up 26%. Bread is up 24%. Butter is up 37%. Baby formula is up 30%. Flour is up 38%. And eggs are up 46%. And many items are up at much higher rates than that. Now Kamala is reportedly proposing communist price controls. She wants price controls. And if they worked, I'd go along with it too, but they don't work. They actually have the exact opposite impact and effect. But it leads to food shortages, rationing, hunger, dramatically more inflation. Their Inflation Reduction Act, by the way, was a disaster. It's what caused the inflation. Their Inflation Reduction Act was a con job. They actually admitted that it wasn't really for inflation that they did it. They don't know why they did it, but they named it the Inflation Reduction Act, which was a very nice name. Got approved based on that. Unfortunately, people didn't understand it. I understood it. I said that's going to cause tremendous inflation, and it did, among other things like energy. She's running on the Maduro plan. We call it the Maduro plan, like something straight out of Venezuela or the Soviet Union. This announcement is an admission that her economic policies have totally failed and caused really a catastrophe for our country, and beyond that, a catastrophe in the world. A little bit unrelated, but not totally unrelated. We have wars breaking out in the Middle East. We have the horrible war going on with Ukraine and Russia. All these things would have never happened if I was president. Would have never, ever happened. And they didn't happen. Since Harris took office, car insurance is up 55%, and they just announced it's going to be substantially higher than that within the next week. They expect big increases in car insurance. It's out of control, and insurance generally. Thanks to Kamala's war on American energy, electricity prices are up 32%. Gasoline prices are up 50% and going higher. Meanwhile, real incomes are down by over $2,000 a year. So the incomes for people are down $2,000 on average a year, government numbers. The typical American has seen a 4% pay cut under Kamala and Biden. Crooked Joe Biden. Credit card debt has exploded by 50% under Harris to a record high. It's now at a record high. It's never been anywhere close. Since March, and by the way, people are going to have to start paying that, and it's not going to be a pretty sight for the next period of time. It could be a substantial time. Since March of 2022, the average middle-class household has lost $33,000 in wealth. How about that? $33,000. That's average. In July alone, 350,000 people were added to the unemployment rolls. It's a lot of people. 350,000 people added to the unemployment rolls. And think of that. That's in 1 month. That's in July. Virtually 100% of the net job creation in the last year has gone to migrants. You know that? Most of the job creation has gone to migrants. In fact, I've heard that substantially more than beyond the number of 100%. It's a much higher number than that, but the government hasn't caught up with that yet. But virtually right now, as of the time they did this, virtually 100% of the net job creation in the last year has gone to migrants. Harris gave work permits and Social Security numbers to more than 3 million illegal immigrants to steal jobs from Americans. So think of that. And, you know, they're having a lot of problems with Social Security. I'm going to be the one to save Social Security, but they're having a lot of problems with Social Security because under their system of putting all of these people into it, it's going to blow up and fail. If she's elected, Social Security will fail. It'll be a blow-up like we've never seen before. It'll be a bankruptcy of the entire system, probably the nation itself. You don't have to imagine what a Kamala Harris presidency would be, because you're living through that nightmare right now, and it is a nightmare. It's a nightmare. And you're going to stop inflation, but we're going to have a crash. And we're going to have a crash like a 1929 crash if she gets in. You saw a gentleman yesterday who got up, one of the top analysts in the world, frankly, and said that if Trump isn't elected, he predicts, and he's predicting you have a stock market crash like 1929. He also said the only time and the only reason the stock market has gone up, even though it had some bad moments recently, maybe because it looked like the race was going to be a little bit closer, but I think we'll take a substantially. You saw the polls come out today. We're leading in most of the polls, but you'll have I don't think they're reporters, however. This is supposed to be reporters. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. When I left office, I handed Kamala and crooked Joe Biden a surging economy with no inflation. The 30-year mortgage rate was around 2%. Gasoline had reached $1.87 a gallon. We actually had many months where it was lower than that, but we hit 187, which was a perfect place, an absolutely beautiful number. Real income surged by more than $4,200 a year when I was president. Harris and Biden blew it all up. If Kamala wins the election, the worst is yet to come. You'll have a real problem in the future because people don't respect her in the world. People don't respect her in the economy. Economists are laughing. They can't even believe this is happening to our country. And she wants to change a free enterprise type country into a communist type country. That's what she knows. She's considered far more radical than Bernie Sanders. That's all you have to know. Far more radical. And she picked somebody that's far more radical than Bernie Sanders. He approved a bill recently, tampons in boys' bathrooms. He wants tampons in boys' bathrooms. It's terrible. It's terrible. But that's the person that she picked. Surprising pick to me. I was shocked. He's also got one of the worst run states. Many people are leaving the state, sixth most. And from her state, she destroyed San Francisco. She destroyed, as the Attorney General, she destroyed California along with Gavin Newsom. And she, San Francisco, you know, was a great city 15 years ago. Now it's considered almost unlivable. You can't live there. And what they've done to that great state with the beautiful weather like this weather, they have this weather all the time. And they have the ocean, they have the sun, they have everything good. But what they've done to it is a shame. And she's going to do the same thing to our country. It was the policies. They had a recent article, and I didn't know this, but you're allowed to rob a store as long as it's not more than $950. Has everyone ever heard of that? You can rob a store, and you have these thieves going into stores with calculators calculating how much it is. Because if it's less than $950, they can rob it and not get charged. That was her that did that. Harris is campaigning on the largest tax increase in American history, including ending the Trump tax cuts, one of the largest tax cuts ever in our country's history, and working with families, a gigantic capital gains tax hike they want, and a new wealth confiscation tax. It's called wealth confiscation tax, which isn't going to make all of her supporters, you know, she's got some supporters that are wealthy people because they're stupid people, but they're wealthy people. She said that a 70 to 80% tax rate is, quote, a bold idea that should be discussed and studied. 70 to 80%. She co-sponsored legislation to abolish very popular private health insurance, which 150 Americans rely on, dumping everyone onto inferior socialist government-run healthcare systems with rationing and deadly wait times while massively raising your taxes. She wants to take away your private healthcare. There are many people in this country who spend a lot of money on private health care. It's the best health care in the world, by the way. But they want to do it. They worked hard to make money, and they want to do it. Under her, you're not going to have private health care plans anymore. And you can be a wealthy person or a middle-income person, and you want to spend on a really good plan, better than a government plan could be, far better. And you're not going to be allowed. You're all going to be thrown into a communist system. It's a communist system. You're going to be thrown into a system where everybody gets health care. You wait for your doctor like 10 months, 12 months, 11 months. You're going to see some of these plans, how they work in other countries. It's disgraceful. So private health care is gone. She wants it out. Now, she could change on that, and she might change on that. She's changed on everything, but I said, why are you changing? I actually was asking somebody that knows her, why is she changing? She had these policies and ideas for years and years and years, and very solid on. All you have to do is go back and look at your tapes, which many have been discarded because they don't want, discarded by the fake news, because they don't want people to see what she said just a year ago and 2 years ago. I've never seen anything like it. Even my statement on waiters, waitresses, caddies, a lot of great people, people that drive cars, no tax on tips. All of a sudden, out of the blue, she comes out. That was months ago I said that. And she came out and she said, no tax on tips. She could have at least said, you know, President Trump had some great ideas, but one of the ideas was no tax on tips. I think it would have been nice, and people would have accepted that. But she just came out like it was hers, and she never had. In fact, just the opposite. The IRS is all set up to really go after people that make tips. And they passed legislation and signed executive orders making it really hard on waiters, waitresses, and that was very recently. That was just before I made the proposal. They were really going after people. So they're lying when they say that, you know, this is what they want to do, because their legislation, which everyone knows, and their executive orders were extremely tough. They also put 88,000 new IRS agents in that can go and harass everybody. She wants to close dozens of existing power plants, causing rollbacks of power in our country. You have brownouts, blackouts, the likes of which you've never seen, and plunging millions and millions of people into poverty. That's going to put them into poverty, and they're not going to have heat, they're not going to have air conditioning. She wants to close dozens of existing power plants, so maybe she'll change that too. But she's got a lot to change. Almost everything she's ever said, she's got to change. Nobody's ever seen, and that's why we're here, nobody's ever seen anything like it. She wants to abolish coal, oil, and natural gas, 84% of U.S. energy supply.
Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for watching NTD Newsroom. We'll be carrying the news conference over to the next hour.
I'm Chris Beers.
And I'm Fiona G. See you tomorrow.
This is it, the culmination of everything our young athlete has worked for these past months. He's filled with determination. You can see it in his face. Is today the day he overcomes? And here we go. There is no defeat